Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
I'm a different man now. In a different place, a new town, surrounded by unfamiliar faces, unfamiliar streets. New hangouts haven't spotted any familiar ones yet, but everything around me is brand new. And so am I. Just yesterday, Uncle Sam cut me loose. The base hospital where I spent a year healing, hurting, and recovering told me I was free to go. On my own now. A new chapter. That morning, I took a cab to meet a guy who led me to his garage. Inside sat a well-worn 1992 Harley FLHS, complete with a pair of oversized leather saddlebags. Back then, it wasn't called a fat boy yet, but it would be. The price was fair, so I handed over $7,500, strapped my modest belongings to the back, put on the helmet he gave me, and rode off toward the county tax office. An hour later, I had plates on the Harley. I hobbled crutch in hand next door to the driver's license bureau. At the counter, the officer gave me a long look and asked, "Just get out?" I nodded, held up my discharge papers, and pointed to today's date. He gave me a nod and said, "Stand over there, I'll get you in right away." When the crowd started to complain, he snapped, "Quiet down if you want in. This man gave up a leg so you could keep living yours. He goes first." Then he turned to me again, his voice lower, "Semper Fi." I smiled, answering just as quietly, "Ura." The others didn't exist to me in that moment. I kept my face straight. The clerk took my paperwork and my military motorcycle safety certificate, keyed everything in, and handed over a Florida commercial chauffeur's license. It let me drive almost anything. I used the base as my address for now temporary, but serviceable. Next door was an insurance office. I stepped in to ask for a quote and left just as fast. Numbers like that could make a grown man choke. I pulled out a folded note with my next stop's address. 20 minutes later, I parked in front of what looked like an old motel, now converted into apartments. I rang the bell under the manager's sign. A tall, heavy-set guy opened the door, grizzled, cigar stub between his lips, wearing a sweat-stained tank top. He didn't say a word. Breaking the silence, I said, "Chad Johnson. I called about the furnished place you have." He grunted, grabbed a clipboard and a key ring, and walked across the lot. I limped behind, leaving the crutch behind this time. At apartment 22, he paused, looked me over, unlocked the door, and then, without a word, motioned for me to go inside. There was a small living room area and a small kitchen, with a bar separating them. On the back wall were 3 doors. The door on the right was obviously a small bathroom, as I could see one of those metal shower stalls. The door to the left was the bedroom, as I could see a bed. The middle door was down a small hallway and appeared to lead outside. I looked into the bedroom, and it was what I would expect. I looked into the bathroom, and it wasn't bad. A sink, commode, and shower. I looked back at the living room, and it had a chair, a small couch, and an ancient TV. The guy walked to the back of the apartment and opened the door that led outside. I looked out to see a covered patio that ran the length of the building. Under it was kids' trikes, a couple of bicycles, and I noticed some motorcycles there too. The man said, "You can park your bike back here. You get in over there between the buildings, but don't be revving up your bike at night. People have to sleep. It's safe back here. You might want to chain it up, but nobody will bother you." That last building on the right is the laundry building. You can use coins or get a card with credits for the washer and dryer. If you want someone to do your laundry for you, there's a bulletin board in there. I walked back to the living room, and he held out the clipboard. "Fill this out and give me the first month plus 200 security. If you don't pay the next month's rent by the last day of the month, you're out of here. Your stuff will be outside in a box. No narcotics, no 304s working out of the apartment, and no shooting. I hate guns. I had enough of them when I was on the force. First time the cops come, I warn you, next time your shit's in a box. You got the 550? I gave him the 350 rent and 2 bills for security. He counted the money and handed me back 150, saying, "I'll cut you some slack and only charge you half a month since it's already the 12th. Remember to get your money in by the last day of the month. Fill out that paper and bring it over before you move your bike." The big man gave me a crooked grin and walked out, heading back toward his apartment. After filling out the required information on the form, I walked back to the manager's apartment and rang the bell. I handed him the clipboard, and he handed me some keys. He asked, "You a vet?" I nodded. "Hurt in Iraq." I nodded. He looked at me and said, "Thanks for what you did. Enjoy here, and I hope you don't have to live here forever." He gave me the crooked grin again and closed the door. I started the bike, rode it to in front of my apartment, and took my duffel bag in and unpacked it. I took out my little notebook and made a list of what I would need. I might have to make more than one trip. First, I needed to eat, buy some food, and get some civilian clothes. Instead of the crutch, I took my fancy aluminum cane and slid it into a saddlebag on the bike and headed down the street to where I had seen a grocery store. With the use of a cart, I picked up the necessary items I needed, including some more toothpaste and soap. I remembered some soap for the dishes too. Since this was my first shot at the grocery store, I picked up some canned chili, canned stew, a couple of frozen dinners, a half-gallon of milk, salt, pepper, loaf of bread, and breakfast stuff, including eggs. To make me happy, I pulled a bag of chips and a six-pack of beer. I figured that I could get all this back to the apartment. Outside, I filled the 2 saddlebags with my purchases with the flaps very loose as the bags were stuffed. Before I started the bike, I opened the fuel tank and looked inside. I saw metal. Damn. I looked at the fuel switch and it was already on the reserve setting. At the far end of the parking lot was a gas station, so I pushed the bike around so it was heading that way and pushed the button. Thankfully, it ran all the way to the gas station. I filled it up with almost the whole 5 gallons before I took my groceries to the apartment, parking in the back next to my back door this time. I mentally almost called it home, but this wasn't home yet. The fridge and freezer were cold, so I put the stuff away and locked back up to head out for some lunch, then to find some clothes. The first place I found was a Hooters, and across the street, and down a ways was a Goodwill store. I had a taste for some spicy wings and beer, so I treated myself. Good stuff, plus the waitresses weren't too bad to look at either. Most of them filled out their Hooters tank tops very nicely. Next stop was the Goodwill store. These places are always in shambles. People pick through stuff and never put it back. Lots of clothes are sort of marked with the size, but you usually had better try it on. It took a half hour to find 4 pairs of jeans in my size, and another half hour to find a pair of dress slacks. Shirts were easier as they all had the factory sizes marked in the collar. 2 hours after going in there, I had the clothes I thought I would need. I even found a pair of engineer boots and a pair of loafers in my size. My left foot had to fit right, but the right one could be too tight or too loose as that was where the prosthetic leg was. The girl at the register smiled sweetly at me and noted that I was using a cane. She looked at me and asked, "You lose a leg?" When I nodded, she said, "My old man did too. He does pretty good just like you." She rang me up, stuffed everything in a bag, then smiled and said, "That will be $7.35. I looked at her questioningly and she smiled again. "We give discounts to vets." When she rolled her eyes, I knew she was giving me a personal discount. I paid, said thank you, and left. Outside, I stuffed my clothes into the saddlebags, rode back to the apartment, and parked behind my place. I took my stuff inside before I walked to the laundry room. There were 3 notes about doing laundry, so I picked the one that said apartment 25. I would have chosen that anyway as the handwriting was neat. I walked back over to the back door to 25 and knocked on the door. A lady, probably in her 30s, came to the door. She really looked beat, but smiled and asked, "You have laundry you need done, honey?" I nodded. "Bring it over so I can see what you have. I don't charge much, but it still costs for the machines. Go get it, okay?" I nodded and went to my place, got the stuff together, and went back to where she had come out of her apartment and was sitting in a lawn chair by her back door. She looked at the stuff and said, "Brand new from Goodwill, huh?" While she looked through the clothes, I checked her out a little better. She was probably closer 5'5" than 35, and maybe 110. Thin, but not bony. She was wearing an old loose unbelted shirtwaist dress that didn't reveal her shape, but you could tell she had some up top and a decent backside. I'm a typical guy, so it took a while to get to her face. She had a lot of lines, so I may be underestimating the age a bit, probably closer to 40. Her hair was a mousy blonde that didn't look dyed. There was some gray mixed in, so the lady was no spring chicken. She smiled and nodded as she looked through each piece. "They have all the buttons and the zippers work, so you made out. You did a good job selecting stuff. Is this all?" I nodded. She looked at me with her version of a crooked smile and asked, "You talk?" "Yes, ma'am, when I need to." "Ah, quiet one, huh? Okay, I'll wash and iron all these for you and starch these good pants and shirts for $10. Is that all right?" I nodded. "I'll have them for you this evening, okay?" I smiled and said, "Thank you." She asked, "That your bike?" Pointing at my Harley. I nodded. "You're safe back here, but you need to chain it up with a good lock." When I frowned, she said, "I'll let you use my old man's. He left last month and hasn't been around, so I'm guessing you can use it till you get one of your own. He's usually gone 2 months before he misses me." She went inside and came out carrying a heavy chain and a big padlock with a key stuck in it. "Thanks," I said, as she handed me her chain and lock. I chained and locked the bike to the metal pole under the overhead cover and went inside to relax. This was the most activity I'd had outside in a year, and I was tired. I flipped the TV on and was rewarded with a good picture. There was a small remote, so I began flipping through channels. Amazing, the place had cable, so I found a decent old movie and settled down to watch it. There was banging on the back door. I had been sleeping, so this startled me. I got up and hobbled to the door to find the lady from next door holding my clothes. I opened the door and took the clothes from her one hand, but she still had some clothes on hangers that she was holding up. I motioned for her to come in, set the clothes down that I had taken from her, then took the hanging pair of pants and shirts. After putting my stuff in the bedroom, I came back into the living room area to find her sitting on one of the two bar stools at the counter. "You washed the sheets on that bed yet?" she asked. I shook my head. "You better let me run them through real quick before you use them. You never know. Let me wash the spread and blanket as well. The manager has a good cleanup crew, but you never know." I nodded and went into the bedroom to strip the bed. There were 2 sheets, 2 pillowcases, a bedspread, and a blanket. I brought them back into the living room and put them on the couch. She went over and smelled the sheets. "Musty. They've been around for a while without being washed. Give me a 5 and I'll get them washed right away." I pulled out a 5 saying, "I'll carry them over for you if you want." "That's okay, I'll do it. I need to wash some other stuff at the same time. I'll just put it all in a basket and carry it over. If you want to know, I get my stuff washed while I do for others. It's kind of cheating, but it's how I get by. If you want me to clean your place, I can do that too. If you need a companion, a bed warmer at night, I can do that when my old man isn't in town. I do what I have to do." I nodded, thinking she wasn't bad looking and she might be worth an evening. I'd bet she was the kind that wouldn't freak out over no right leg below the knee when she saw the stub. She left, and I looked at my watch. It was already 6, so I had slept for a couple of hours. I took out a TV dinner and a beer. I didn't have a microwave, so I had to warm up the oven. While that was going on, I checked to find dishes, flatware, and some pots and pans. There wasn't a lot, but enough to get by. While I was waiting for the stove to warm, I noticed the lady carrying her basket to the laundry room. She would take a while to do everything, and my 5 would barely cover the machines and soap. I figured on tipping her 5 when she brought my stuff back. I ate while watching the local and national news on the local cable channel. It was spring, part of Florida's dry season. It was pretty nice out, so it was nice to be able to have the front and back doors open to let a breeze go through. Funny, for most of this last year, I had made all my plans on what I was going to do when I was on my feet, or is that foot, and out of that damned hospital. Now that I was out, I was a little scared, uncertain, not sure of myself like I usually was. Well, I bought a bike, rented a place, bought some clothes, and I'd fed myself. Now I have to find a job. I have a list of places to check, but from what the news is saying over and over again, is that there aren't any jobs. I could get along on my VA benefit and some assistance, and I know I was eligible for food stamps. I was eligible for housing too, but I didn't want to live in a project. I just wouldn't fit. I need to find a job of some kind. Hopefully, I can find a driving job, or fall back to what I learned in trade school before the Marines, welding. Time will tell. I was at the counter when there was banging on the back door again and a voice called out, "It's Cheryl, I've got your bedclothes." I hopped down and made it to the door. When I tried to take them from her, she pushed past me and went to the bedroom with them. I tried to start helping her, and she said, "Go in there and open me one of those beers and let me do this." Okay, I know when to listen. I went to the fridge and took out 2 cold ones. There were still 2 left. That was plenty, or so I thought. She came in, pushing her hair back from her sweaty face. I handed her an opened can of beer, and she handed it back to me and took the one that had not been opened yet. She opened it and took a couple of big gulps from it. She sort of watched me closely until I drank from the beer she had handed back to me. She smiled and took another big swig from the can. "Ah, hits the spot, thanks." I nodded but had to ask, "You said Cheryl was at the door. Is that short for something?" "Glad you asked." "Yes, the name is Shirley McGiver. If you're wondering, it's my maiden name too. Never married, but I've had the same old man for 20 or so years." I took out my wallet and handed her a 5 saying, "Thank you, Shirley McGiver. You've been a big help." "What's this for?" "If it's for bed warming, I think I'm worth more in that. If it's a tip, I should have been doing this as a welcome service, but thank you very much." I was smiling and slowly shaking my head at her forwardness. Shirley stretched a little. "You new here?" "New in town." I looked at her and wondered how much I should tell her. "I just got out of service, but have been out at the base for the last year." "Then you know Tampa pretty well?" Shirley said. "Don't know it at all. This is the first time I've been off base." She frowned. "What the hell you been doing out there that you haven't been in town? Now is shit, or get off the pot time." My cane was next to me, so I picked it up and banged it on my prosthetic a couple of times and said, "It took a while to get this fitted and to figure out how to walk with it." She squinted at me, then very matter-of-factly said, "So you lost a leg, just one or both?" "How high?" "Just one, below the knee." Shirley nodded then said, "Let me see." I pulled up the leg of my pants all the way to the knee. "Good job. Looks like whoever made this knew what they were doing. My brother lost a leg and a foot. He gets around pretty good. Doesn't hardly use a crutch or cane. If he's feeling poorly, he uses a walker." Shirley pushed my pant leg down and said, "Since you haven't been out and about for a long, long time, want me to show you the places to go?" "That would be nice." "Give me 10. Make it 15 minutes. I gotta take a shower. Get your bike unchained, and we'll be gone. If you have a jacket, you might need it tonight. It's getting cooler out there." I thought to myself, what the hell? I guess I'm ready for the world. She thinks so. Should I ride her? I haven't ridden in 5, 6 years, and should she trust me to up? I went in the bedroom and pulled out my old leather jacket. It wouldn't do in real cold weather, but it would do okay without a liner in this weather. I should put that on my list. Come to think of it, there were some decent leathers at the Goodwill store. I'll have to check them out. I locked up the front and shut off the lights, but left the back porch light on. About the time I had the chain off and the bike turned around with the gas on the main tank and not reserve, Shirley came out of her place locking the door. She didn't have a helmet and I only had mine, so I offered her my helmet. She took it and set it by my door. We don't need those anymore in Florida. When you go out make a left, I'll tell you after that. Shirley wore jeans and a tank top under an open leather jacket. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and somehow in just 15 minutes, she looked years younger. You could tell she'd been riding for a long time. She moved naturally with the bike, leaning with me smoothly and without tension. She kept talking, giving directions. Turn left, go straight, watch for the bar up on the left. We pulled into a small bar tucked behind a row of buildings, bikes lined up out of view from the street. You'll be fine in here, no club types. I'll just tell them you're my new neighbor, all right? Just a neighbor. Most of these folks know my old man. Tonight's not exactly the best time to be out meeting new people, but hey, you never know. The moment we stepped inside the loud bar, the noise shifted toward us. People started shouting, Cheryl, Cheryl, where you been, you nut? Who's this guy, someone you dragged in off the street? Hey buddy, getting the full tour or what? Shirley didn't skip a beat. She landed a solid punch to the loudest one's gut as she walked by. He's my new neighbor, genius. I'm showing him around. Oh sure, the guy coughed. Showing him the neighborhood. Huh? Maybe what it costs to look around. Shirley stopped cold. She snatched the bottle from his hand, swung it in a sharp arc against the corner of the bar. It shattered, leaving only the neck in her grip and jagged glass aimed at his throat. You better watch your mouth, she growled. One more word, and you'll be leaking all over this floor. A mammoth came up behind Shirley, grabbed her hand with the beer bottle, and at the same time picked the loudmouth up by the belt of his pants. The huge hand on her wrist slid up smoothly, taking the jagged bottle from her hand. Out you go. Jerry, your mouth got the best of you tonight. Come back tomorrow after your mother has washed it out for you. You keep this up and you'll be treated like any kid and be grounded. Now get. As the mammoth said this, he pushed open the back door and actually pitched the guy out into the parking lot. Funny the loudmouth didn't say a word to the big man. Shirley looked at me and noticed that I had leaned back against the pool table and had the 6-ball in my hand. Put it down. The guys playing pool would miss the ball. Besides that, I don't think you could knock Jonah out with only a pool ball. The mammoth came back to us and stuck out his giant hand. I'm Jonah. Sorry you had to hear that shit. Let me get you a beer on the house, and thanks for not hitting me with that damn pool ball. Those things knock the piss right out of you. Shirley laughed and said, Jonah, this is my new neighbor, Chad. He just got out of the service, and I'm showing him around. Jonah looked at me and reached up to touch a patch sewn on my jacket. You a Marine? I nodded. Semper Fi, Jonah said, as he grabbed me in a bear hug. I choked out a ura while trying to get my breath. Hell, let's all three get a beer and I'll introduce you around. Jonah and Shirley introduced me to what seemed like a crowd of people, but it was probably only about 30 or so. The place wasn't that big. While we were near the front door, a tall, confident woman walked in. She wasn't dressed in biker attire, but instead wore a short, elegant evening gown. She had an impressive presence, standing at least 6'6" or 7 feet tall and easily weighing over 300 pounds. She had a commanding aura, and I couldn't help but notice her. Shirley saw me looking and said, Easy there, she's already taken. Jonah chuckled and said, Hey, for a fellow Marine, I'll share the fun. It takes a Marine to handle someone like her anyway. Hey Millie, come over here and meet the guy who's clearly impressed by you. Millie walked over to Jonah and, with a grin, pulled his head toward her. Go ahead, take it all in, she teased. Millie gave him a playful shove and turned to me, narrowing her eyes. So, you're the new guy? Shirley, you keeping him busy? Before Shirley could respond, Jonah chimed in. She's just showing him around, giving him the tour. In a dramatic voice, Millie said, Well, I'm definitely a sight, aren't I, darling? Shirley laughed. Trust me, he's probably more interested than he's letting on. When I frowned at the comment, Millie lifted me effortlessly and pulled me into her space, giving me a friendly kiss on the cheek. Don't mind us, sweetie. We just like to enjoy life. Jonah added, I was going to suggest he join us later, Millie, but looks like you've already got him intrigued. Millie gently set me down and gave me a playful pat on the shoulder. There's plenty of fun ahead, don't worry. You'll see. Shirley leaned toward me and whispered, Well, Tampa's going to feel pretty quiet after this. We finally got our beer, but Millie and Jonah invited us back to his office, where he offered some drinks. Millie relaxed in a comfortable chair, casually settling in. She was confident, laughing with Jonah, and it was clear that she had her own unique way of enjoying life. Shirley, shaking her head, said, "Millie, you're certainly not shy. You're a character." Millie responded with a grin, "No need for modesty, sweetie. I'm just giving him a taste of the fun." Jonah laughed and said, "Chad, she's all woman. You can see that as soon as she walked in. There's no one like Millie." "Millie," Jonah said, "this guy is a Marine. So if you're going to give up some leg, he should be the candidate." Millie smiled. "I'll stick to what I know is good and tease the rest." "You don't mind me teasing you a little, do you, Chad?" I nodded. "He don't talk much either, does he?" Millie directed that to Shirley. "So far he ain't a talker. Well, take him home and enjoy him. He might use that mouth for something better." We went back out to the bar and enjoyed the crowd for a while. Shirley grabbed my wrist and looked at my watch. "Come on, let's get home. I might get a call between now and 1. That's when he calls when he does. I like to be there for him if he does call." I said goodbye to Jonah and got a bear hug and smooch from Millie. She whispered in my ear, "Jonah said we could get together. Ditch your babe and see Jonah. If he says you're good for it, I'm ready, honey." Just name the time she teased, I think. Shirley and I left while I was still gawking at the huge, luscious Millie. At home, I chained up the bike while Shirley went next door. I had just gone inside when Shirley came back, carrying a portable phone. "If he calls, I can answer it over here as well as at home. You have any more beer left?" I opened the last 2 beers and handed her one. Shirley pointed toward the back of the buildings. "Right between those buildings is a liquor store. They have cold beer too. They're open till 2 if you want to get some more beer or some booze." I nodded, then asked, "Do you want some liquor? Something besides beer?" "Not really, but that Jack tasted pretty good tonight. We shouldn't drink too much of that stuff though. It'll knock you out." I left walking as fast as I could on my good and bad foot. I picked up a 12-pack and a 5th of Jack Daniels. When I walked in the door, Shirley was on her phone and held up a finger to her mouth to be quiet. "Why can't you come home now? Honey, you've been gone over a month. I miss you. Baby, I need you around." A long pause. "Come home. There's probably as much work around here as anywhere." Another pause. "Whatever you say, honey, just come home soon, okay? If you don't come home soon, I'm going to have to hunt up someone to scratch my itch. Now get home before I get desperate. And if you can, send me a couple of bucks, okay?" Another pause. "You know I'm not working and can barely make ends meet." There was a very long pause. "Okay, honey, love you." I could see her now just looking at the phone before pushing the hang-up button. A big tear rolled down her cheek and dropped onto the phone. Shirley raised her head, sniffing back the rest of the tears. "Good, you bought some booze. I could use a little of that along with another beer." While I poured the drinks and opened a couple of bottles, Shirley moved around the house with purpose, pulling the curtains closed, lowering the shades, turning off the lights, and cracking open a window in the bedroom. Once the back door was locked, she returned, picked up her glass, and downed the strong pour in one go before taking a long sip of her beer. "Ah, hits the spot," she said. "That son of a gun is in Spokane, Washington. What the hell is he doing up there?" I recognized the area code. "He's a sandblaster, and there aren't any big ships in Spokane." She sat on the couch and began letting her hair down. "Damn, he could get steady work around here or on the Gulf Coast, but he always ends up chasing jobs across the country. I know why he never has money. He's too busy wasting it. Always running around, never grounded. One of these days, I won't be waiting here anymore." Shirley looked like she was on the edge of tears. She didn't break down completely, but the pain in her eyes was clear. I wasn't sure if it was my place to comfort her, but everything in me wanted to ease her pain. It seemed like she'd been carrying this for a long time. She glanced up and patted the empty spot on the couch beside her. "I won't bite. Come sit with me. I could really use a hug." I sat down, and she leaned in gently, resting her head on my shoulder. It was quiet, just the two of us sharing the kind of moment where words aren't really needed. Shirley pulled back a little and offered a small smile. "You're kind. It means a lot right now." We sat there, sharing a few quiet laughs, small words, and the kind of closeness that wasn't about romance or expectation, it was about comfort. Eventually, she led me to the bedroom, where we both needed rest after an emotional day. We lay there, side by side, the tension of the day slowly easing away. As I drifted off to sleep with her arms wrapped around me, she whispered, "Just sleep. I want you to stay close tonight." That's how my first day out on my own began, a complicated day, yes, but one that ended with a reminder that even in the middle of loss and loneliness, connection still matters. I woke this morning to kisses on my neck and back. I flipped over to see Shirley smiling at me. "Did you sleep good, baby? Did you?" I smiled. Shirley hugged me to her full front, feeling my morning erection poking into her. "Do you need to use the bathroom?" "I did already. Go and come back, okay?" I went to the John and came back to find Shirley holding up the covers for me to crawl in next to her. We kissed and hugged until my part A found her slot B, and we proceeded to have a long, enjoyable session. When we were laying there in our juices, Shirley said, "How about that? I didn't even give you a chance to buy some happy time with me. I just gave it away. It was worth it, though. You really made me feel good. I want more of this, so rest up, Chad. I think we need to do some more exploring." We got up and washed off in the tiny metal shower stall. I only had the one big towel, but it was enough for this morning. I needed to put towels on my list. I told Shirley to sit at the counter, and I would fix us breakfast. She asked, "What are you going to fix?" "How about bacon, eggs, and toast?" "Would that do?" "That would be great, but you're not making it. I'm the cook when I'm around. If you have coffee, make it. I'll do breakfast." Thank goodness I had bought coffee and was able to find the old-fashioned drip pot. I made a pot of strong coffee, and surprisingly, by the time the pot had brewed, Shirley was putting plates of food on the table. We each had 4 pieces of bacon. She had 2 eggs, but had made me 3. We ate heartily until she pushed herself back and said, "Damn, that's the first good meal I've had in a week. Sure is nice to have a neighbor that feeds me. I'm going to take your 5 and go to the grocery later today." I frowned. "You can't buy much with a 5, Shirley." "Bet me," she said. "I can get a bunch of rice that will last me several days. I'll get some beef base or chicken base to flavor the rice and live good until I can get some more money ahead. You're going to need to wash your sheets again, so I'm ahead already. Perhaps I can help you keep getting them dirty. Maybe you didn't get a freebie after all." While I was laughing, she said, "Never tell anyone we did that, okay? I don't want my man to find out, even though he is such a jerk. I love him, Chad, but I did enjoy fooling around with you. We'll do some more, but don't tell anyone." I nodded. "Well, I gotta collect everyone's laundry and get started. I like to get that stuff done before noon. I'll talk to you later, okay?" I nodded as she gave me a quick kiss on the way out the door. I opened the front door to let the breeze flow through the apartment and cleaned up the kitchen. I gathered up the empties to take them out the back to the opening between the buildings where I had seen a dumpster. Back home, Shirley was in the bedroom, stripping my sheets. She said, "I'll do yours with the 304 stuff, Wanda," down on the end. She has 4 or 5 sets of sheets every day. She works out of her place, so she has lots of laundry. There are 2 other working girls out here, but they do their own laundry. I don't think they have as much traffic as Wicked Wanda does. I made another pot of coffee and began listing more food to get. I wasn't going to let Shirley go without good food. Whether or not she spends the night, she was going to eat. I needed a phone, so I should pick up one of those pay-as-you-go cell phones. Next, I needed to consider what I didn't really want. I needed to get a car or pickup to use to look for a job. People weren't going to like me riding up on my bike to get a job. I needed to get a computer of some kind or find a library so I could get my email. My cousin and my aunt were all I had as far as relatives, and I wanted to stay in touch with them. Besides, I needed the email to stay in touch with my guys who were over in Afghanistan this time. I walked over to the manager's apartment and rang the bell. The big guy came to the door in what looked like the same clothes from yesterday, still chewing on the cigar. "What do I want? Do you have wireless internet out here?" I think they heard him laugh in Orlando. "I'll tell you what though, somebody has cable Roadrunner with a wireless router. I'm using it, so if you link up, you're gold. Just don't cook the goose, okay?" I nodded. "If you want private internet hookup, you can order it from the cable company." I nodded again and left. I locked up the apartment, found Shirley, and gave her a key while asking if she personally knew of anyone who sold cars or trucks. She said, "Go by Jonas. He knows everyone and he'll steer you right." I rode over to the small bar and went inside. The bartender, a bottle blonde, was behind the counter, and Jonah was sitting in a booth at the back, going through some books. I waved off the bartender and went straight to Jonah. Jonah looked up as I approached and said, "How's it going, my man? What brings you out this morning?" "I need to buy a car or pickup. Do you know anyone I can deal with?" "How about an S10? I know someone with a 95 model that runs great. He's not asking much, and he might go lower because he needs the money. You know him too, he was talking a lot last night. Jerry." I nodded. "Let me call him. He lives just around the corner. We can walk over and take a look." Jonah made the call, and we walked just around the corner to meet Jerry, who was dressed casually in jeans, no shirt, and no shoes. He held up the keys and said, "Take it around the block a couple of times, then we'll talk." Jonah and I got in with me driving. I started it up and let it idle for a minute listening while it warmed up. I flipped on the air and cold air came out. I put it in gear, dropped the handbrake, and felt the clutch as we pulled away. I slowly accelerated, shifted into second, third, and fourth, but never reaching fifth gear. The clutch felt good and the motor sounded smooth. I rolled down the window to listen while I used the brakes to slow me down to a stop. We drove back to Jerry's place, and he now had shoes and a shirt on. Jerry asked, "What do you think? What kind of deal can you make, Jerry?" "I think I should be able to get $3,500 out of it." I looked at Jerry, then Jonah, and said, "Let's go," and began walking off. "Hey, where are you going?" Jerry called. You don't want to sell the truck, do you? Sure, I do. I have to sell it. I have a new one, and I don't want to have to buy insurance for this anymore. I'll give you $1,000. Take it or leave it, I said coldly, and turned again to walk. Shit, that ain't enough. You have to come up with more. I kept walking. Hey, come back. I'll tell you what. How about $2,000? I kept walking. Now Jerry was following us. Come on, deal with me. I stopped and said in the same even tone, I'll give you $1,000 for the truck. I think that's more than fair. Jerry kicked rocks around a couple of seconds, then said, Okay, I'll take the $1,000. It's gotta be worth more than that, though. You don't have to sell it to me, Jerry. I'll keep looking. I'll find something for around $1,000 that will be equal to your truck. Enough? Okay, do you have the money? Do you have the title? We traded cash for title, and I drove Jonah back to the bar. Good job, Jonah said. That's the way to bargain with that jerk. Actually, you paid what the truck is probably worth. But good job anyway. We pulled my bike to the back of the bar to be safe, while I took off to take care of the registration. I drove toward the tag office again, but I was watching for insurance offices on the way. I pulled into a house with a big State Farm sign. 30 minutes later, I had insured the bike and the truck and was on my way to register the truck. When I drove home, I went through my place and over to Shirley's and knocked on her door. She came to the door in another of her shapeless shirtwaist dresses. I asked her, Do you have a driver's license? She smiled. Yeah, I got one, but haven't driven for a year or so. Do you think you could drive a pickup back from Jonas? Shirley smiled again. I could. Where did you get a pickup truck? Jerry had one he needed to sell, so we made a deal. At least that prick has something of value, Shirley spit out. Did you slap him a couple of times to make a deal? It was a fair deal. When could you go over there with me? Would now be good? Shirley nodded. Now would be good. Let me get my purse and lock up. Do you have your bike or the pickup in front? I nodded, saying pickup before Shirley went into her house, closing her door. We met in front of the apartments, and I opened the passenger door for her to get in the truck. She said, Thank you. That's gentlemanly to do that. I nodded and got in to drive to the bar. Not having thought of it, I asked Shirley, Do you know how to drive a standard shift? Yeah, I can do that. That's all I've really ever driven. Inside the bar, we had the daytime barmaid give us each a beer. We drank our beer and munched on some free peanuts. While we were sitting there, I asked Shirley, Would you do me a favor? She looked at me warily, but said, What you need? I can cook for myself, but not very good. I'm going to get tired of frozen dinners pretty quick. You did breakfast real good, so how about we make a deal? I'll take you to the grocery store, and you pick out the stuff we would need to eat for, say, a week. Get enough for our evening meals and some stuff for lunch, like lunch meat and soup, or something like that. I guess we should include more breakfast stuff too. Then the deal is you cook and I'll pop for the food. This way we both get a decent meal. What do you think? Shirley grinned and frowned at the same time. You trying to make a welfare case out of me or trying to find a live-in? No, neither one. Speaking of welfare, you know I need to go to the aid office for food stamps. I'll bet I'm more than eligible. You might be too. I think I can file for unemployment now too. With my VA benefit, unemployment, plus food stamps, it might be enough to carry me through for a while. Shirley asked, You really going to ask for food stamps? Sure, why not? We can get all of our staples and fresh food items with them. I've paid my taxes, so I might as well get some benefit until I can get regular work. I ain't exactly rolling in money, and I've spent a lot yesterday and today. I figured I needed the truck for transportation to work if I get a dress-up job. I'm not going to be too picky though, so I'll take anything I'm physically capable of doing. I asked her again, Would you be willing to barter? I'll buy, you cook, we both eat? Shit, yes. If you feed me, I might even get some meat on these bones, Shirley said. It'll be a good deal for me, so I can save all my laundry money for rent. We finished our beer, and I gave her the truck keys before I went out the back to take the bike back in front. I told Shirley, Let's stop at the store on the way home and get a couple of days' food. I'll go to the aid office tomorrow. They might get me started out fast since I'm an XGI. We bought the bare essentials, but it looked to be enough to feed both of us for a couple of days. Since it was now getting towards supper, Shirley said she would cook up supper now and finish her laundry afterward. She cooked some spaghetti and meatballs. We had a salad before and some canned peas to go with it. It was a decent meal. When we finished, I motioned for her to go do her stuff, and I would clean up. There was enough left over to put in the refrigerator for lunch tomorrow for at least one of us. When I was done, I walked back to the laundry room to see if anyone had left a newspaper back there. There was one, so I waved at Shirley and carried the classified section back to the apartment. There were not many jobs available, but there were some driving jobs. I couldn't do deliveries because I probably couldn't pick up much over 70 or 80 pounds. I had found out in rehab that it hurt like hell to try to carry too much. There were some over-the-road jobs, but I didn't want to do that. As far as skilled labor, there wasn't anything there either. I was looking at the welding trade as I know I can do that. Nothing. Maybe the unemployment people would have some listings. I browsed the rest of the ads and wondered what it would be like to sell cars or to work in an office as a truck dispatcher or this one that was a 911 operator. In the medical area, there were some jobs listed for the Veterans Hospital. I'll bet I would get some preference for out there. I was going to have to go out there anyway, so I might as well ask while I'm there. I made a list. Unemployment office, welfare office, Veterans Hospital. Shirley knocked on the door and walked in, wearing a terry cloth robe with her hair wrapped in a towel. Got a beer for your cook? I nodded and pulled 2 cans from the fridge. While I was doing that, Shirley pulled out a small chocolate cake from the fridge with what looked like creamy icing on it. Want some dessert? I got this cake for us. We ate cake, drank our beer, and discussed my list and what I had found in the classifieds. The woman said, "You're going to busy tomorrow. You best go to bed early. What say I give you a nice massage to put you to sleep? If I stay here, it'll be faster for me to make breakfast for you in the morning." I smiled and went to brush my teeth before bed. By the time I had finished getting ready, Shirley had already closed up the place and opened the windows. She was sitting on the bed with the sheet and spread turned back, brushing her hair. I changed into my undershirt and shorts and lay down on the bed. "You didn't wear shorts to bed last night. Is that how you're planning to sleep?" she asked. I looked at her, gave a half smile, and slipped them off, tossing them toward the closet before lying back down on my stomach. Shirley began gently massaging my back with some kind of oil. The longer she worked, the deeper her hands dug, methodically loosening each muscle group. She worked down my back, over my legs, and all the way to my feet. Then she gave me a playful pat and said, "Roll over." I was so relaxed it took effort to move. She continued the massage, starting from my feet and working up to my shoulders and chest. "You've been working out a lot," she said. "You'll have to find a gym or a Y nearby to stay in shape." I was so at ease that when she moved around, I didn't even open my eyes. "That was wonderful," I said, turning my head to kiss her forehead. I reached over, gently cupped her chin, and kissed her again, a warm, grateful kiss. She smiled and sat beside me, her hair falling around us like a curtain. "It means something that you'd kiss me like that," she said quietly. I kissed her again, expressing thanks not just for the massage, but for everything: her care, her presence, her calm. We eventually lay back together, Shirley curled up beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. In a minute, we were both asleep. The next morning I was up, showered, fed, and on the way to the unemployment office by 7. I found the place easier than I thought I would. It didn't open until 8, so I stood by the door using my aluminum cane to lean on. Several people came up to the door and rattled it. When I pointed to the sign with my cane that gave the hours, they each cursed, turned, and walked away. My thought was no sense in leaving if this was where you needed to be. When the door opened, I spotted a take a number machine, so I pulled the first tab available and stood by an aisle as I thought I would be called first. No such luck. My number was 173 and the number called was 151. An older man in work clothes got up and went to the window. I had not thought that people from the day before had numbers and were going to be waiting this morning. Nothing left to do but sit down and wait. With 8 workers interviewing applicants, it only took 45 minutes to be called. After explaining my position, the lady handed me a stack of forms and told me to fill them out and bring them back to her. I only needed to come up and stand near her window, and she would help me as soon as the person she was working with left. It took over a half hour to fill out all of the forms. Once the woman was helping me again, she said I might not be eligible for benefits as I was receiving a benefit from the Veterans Administration. She went to check with her supervisor, came back to tell me that I was entitled to unemployment benefits and would receive my first check 2 weeks from the date of my discharge. When she acted as if I were dismissed, I asked, "Don't you folks also help unemployed people find a job? Most of the information I just filled out is like a job application." She looked at me as if I had a big pimple on my nose, then said, "Do you really want to find a job?" "Yes, ma'am, I do. If you look at the forms, I do have several qualifications that would suit me to many jobs. When I was looking at the classified ads last night, there weren't any that looked like I would be qualified for. Let me assign you to a career counselor so you can be guided in the right direction." The lady picked up her phone, spoke a few minutes, and wrote a name and number on a pad. She tore off the top piece of paper from the pad and handed it to me. "Please go to the 3rd floor and speak with Lorna Williams in room 312. Ms. Williams is a career counselor for military personnel re-entering the workforce." I nodded, smiled, and made my way toward a sign that said elevator. Room 312 had a closed door, so I knocked on the door and waited for someone to grant me entry. I knocked again, but much louder, and waited again, listening. A short, fat little man with Coke bottle glasses opened the door next to the 312 and said, "Lorna is not here. She just left on break. If you will come back in a half hour, she should be back." I looked up and down the hallway and didn't see any chairs and didn't remember any in the elevator vestibule. I decided to just stand there and wait, thinking that it was pretty rude to know someone is on their way up to see you and to take off like that. 45 minutes later, the little fat man came out of his office and looked at me. Did you just come back, or have you been here all this time? I didn't answer, but waited, listening for what he had to say. He raised his eyebrows and said, you must have missed her as she came back from her break, but just left for the day to take care of personal business. You know the feeling, a cross between anger, disappointment, and frustration. It makes you shiver with the cold anger that swirls through your body. I nodded, then went to the elevators and went back to stand at the clerk's window I had been served at originally. When the person she had been helping left, she asked me what the problem was. After explaining what had just transpired, she picked up her phone and made a call. While she was talking, I could see her face turn red as she became perturbed. I heard her ask, where the hell are you? You're not in your office as a man with a bad leg, and Kane waited for you to come back from your break. How did I just call you, and where the hell are you? The worker listened for a few minutes before slamming the phone down. She pointed her finger at my side of the counter and said, you stay right where you are. I have to see my supervisor. Less than 5 minutes later, another lady came to the window with the worker and said, Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry you had to wait for someone that wasn't present. Could you give us your phone number, and we will call you with an appointment time? I closed my eyes and opened them slowly. I don't have a phone and probably can't afford one for a while, or at least until I can get a job. I need to work to feed myself. I used most of my exit money to rent a place to live, purchase transportation, and some clothes from Goodwill so I can get a job and have a way to get to it. Please, do you by any chance have a job for someone right here? The supervisor looked at me funny. Would you work here? In an office, helping unemployed people? It's not the best place in the world to work. I wasn't trying to be a wise guy, but I had to ask, do you get paid? Do you have a nice home with a telephone? She almost frowned, then smiled and asked, can you type? I nodded. Would you take an aptitude and typing test? I nodded again. The lady laughed and said, perhaps you need to have a talking examination instead of a typing test. Come with me. Go to the far end where there is a gate and come through there. The supervisor had garnered my stack of forms that I had filled out and led me to a small conference room. She seated me, left, and returned with a file folder. She handed me 3 number 2 pencils and a group of forms and said, please take your time and answer each of these questions to the best of your ability. This is an aptitude questionnaire. It is designed to identify your most effective work areas. There is no time limit. If you need to use the restroom, there is one out this door and to your right. There is also a drinking fountain there. Please see me in my office when you're finished. It is the first door on your left. There were 6 sheets of paper with questions on each side. The print was very small and a little smudged. If you didn't have good eyesight, it would be impossible to complete the forms. There were no trick questions, but they did ask the same thing in different ways about 10 times for every question. It took an hour and 15 minutes to complete all the questions. It was now 11:50, and people would be going to lunch. I went next door, fully expecting the supervisor to be gone to lunch. The door was open, so I knocked on the door jamb. She looked up and said, come in. She held her hand out for the papers and said, please sit for a minute. While sitting, I watched as she took a form with holes in it and began counting where I had filled in the little box. Her desk was reasonably neat with some file folders and a pad. There was a large name display. It said, Metairie White. I had to smile as Metairie White was a very, very dark-skinned lady. She was what should she be called now? African American? Black? To me, she was just a person, so she was just Ms. White. It seemed to take as long to grade and define the test as it did to take it. She looked up and asked, are you familiar with a computer keyboard? I nodded. Yes, ma'am would do better than a nod, Mr. Johnson. Yes, ma'am. She chuckled. Please have a seat at the computer to your right. Turn it on, and when it finishes booting, I'll tell you the program to use. One thing the Marines do have is computers. They have computers in the barracks, computers in the library, computers in the day rooms, even computers in the chow hall. If you didn't know how to boot up a computer and read directions, you would never know what you were assigned to do from day to day. Upon boot up, I asked and was told what program to use. Ms. White told me to put on the headset and use the mouse to start the test. She said the first one would be to let me warm up, and the second would be the timed event. Hallelujah, I had done something right in high school. I had taken 2 computer classes. The first semester was only typing. Next, we learned how various programs worked. Upon completing the typing test, a full screen came on with the number 96 flashing on the screen. When I turned to advise Ms. White, she was already looking and said, hit escape. She paused and gave me another program to find. There wasn't a screen icon for it, so I had to go to the XP program list to find it. Once I had the program booted, Ms. White reached over my shoulder and asked me to enter the information she had derived when she graded my aptitude questionnaire. This took almost 15 minutes. I clicked on the submit icon and a printer next to Ms. White's desk word and spit out several printed sheets. She looked over them and occasionally kept referring to the application form that I had filled out downstairs. I know you have not had lunch, Mr. Johnson, so would you like to accompany me to the restaurant next door? The big rush should just about be over, so we should be able to get a table. Let me take these with me. She gathered up all the papers she had held and put them in a folder. As she got up from her desk, she said, "This will be Dutch. I'm not allowed to buy lunch for a prospective employee or an existing employee." I nodded, but said, "Yes, ma'am." Metairie White smiled broadly that I had answered her. The restaurant was a cross between a self-serve cafeteria and a serving line. I chose a Cuban sandwich that a cafeteria worker put into the presser for me. I also bought a large iced tea. Upon sitting down, Ms. White said, "You have good manners, Mr. Johnson. You held every door. You had me precede you in the serving line, and finally you even seated me at the table. Manners are important, and I look for them in prospective employees. Your aptitude questionnaire says you would do well in our environment and that you would make a good team member, as well as an eventual leader. You do not have any experience other than your military training and combat experience. You did not finish a degree in school, but you scored very high in the general knowledge area, which is usually only accomplished after finishing a degree program. Eat up, Mr. Johnson, and let me think about this." We ate leisurely without stuffing our food into our mouths and gulping it down. After wiping her mouth with her napkin and laying it on her plate, I asked, "Can I get us a cup of coffee, or would that make us late returning?" "That would be wonderful. Black, please." And this is still part of the interview process. Back at the table, we were sipping our coffee when Ms. White began. "I'm reluctant to hire you as a general clerk as it is really boring, plus you have to deal with some unsavory people every day. I have need for a new person to help military people re-enter the workforce, but that position is posted requiring a degree in human resources. You recognize that you have to work to earn money to enjoy life, so you are more than halfway to getting a job. Now, I just have to find a place for you." She drank some more of her coffee and said, "I need a temporary secretarial staff member for about 60 days. The permanent secretary is out on maternity leave. This position also requires substituting as an interview clerk to give breaks in the morning and afternoon. You will work 1 hour, giving 4 breaks in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon, giving 4 breaks then as well. I'll send you out to work with the window clerks a full day before you have to relieve anyone. If you work fast, you will finish 1 person at each substitution. The first few days you will be longer trying to get the interview complete, but you will become quick very fast. The secretarial position requires some transcription, filling out forms, filing, answering calls for your immediate supervisor, and assisting your supervisor to fulfill their responsibilities. What do you think? Want to work as a secretary to see how you react to an office?" I didn't frown, but I must have had a sour look on my face. What would this temporary position pay? I'm sure it would be at least what unemployment pays, and I wouldn't have to go get food stamps. Temps begin at $12 an hour, with permanent secretarial and interview clerks earning up to $18 an hour. You will receive an extra $2 a day for working 2 hours at the window. That position pays $1 an hour premium. It didn't take me long to figure out I could live on the $4.80 a week, but I thought I could probably eventually find a better job. I needed to go to the VA hospital to get checked in and to get my health club membership for continued rehab. That would be a lifetime freebie. "Ms. White, I will take your position and consider it temporary while I seek better employment. I need the job and you need the worker. I'm sure I will fulfill the responsibilities the job requires. I can start in the morning if you wish, but this afternoon I have to go to the VA to check in and to find a new gym for my rehab." "Good. Come to the back door by 7:50 in the morning and come to my office. I will have you sign your W-4 and we will get you started." We stood and I escorted her back to her door, going out to my pickup a little lighter on my feet. I would have a job to take up some slack on finances. I'd sure like to keep my little savings intact in case I need something for a rainy day. The VA experience was a total wait and see. It took an hour wait to get my interview and a new card, and it took another hour to get in to see the clerk who gave me a local Lifestyles gym card. She said that if I would prefer Gold's Gym or the YMCA, I could switch, but Lifestyles were all over the area and had a contract with the VA. When I finished, I found the employment office and asked for an application. After I filled it out, the clerk looked up my DD-214 on the computer and said, "The only thing we have open right now is on the security team. I don't think you would qualify with your disability. They are regular policemen out here and have to do what a regular policeman does. I will keep your application and send it around. As you get other outside experience, come back and update your application, okay?" That was disappointing. A guy doesn't like to be told that you can't do something physically. Oh well, it was 5:15, time to go home and have a beer. I parked the truck in front of the apartment and went into the stuffy place. I propped the front door open and opened the back door and the bedroom window. I checked the bike to make sure it was still there before I went to the fridge to get a beer. Thinking about it, I got 2 out and went to Shirley's back door to bang on it. Before I knocked, I could see her at an ironing board working on a shirt. She had the radio on a country station, listening to someone wail. I called out, "Hey Shirley, want a beer?" She jumped, set the iron down, and hung up the shirt. She came out the back door and sat in a lawn chair, pointing at another one sitting across from her. It took the whole beer to tell her what all I had done and that I was employed as of tomorrow morning. It wasn't a big wage, but it would do until I found something better. I figured if I was working at the employment office, I would have a lot of opportunity to find out about jobs. I would also have time to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Shirley was the smart one as she asked, "What kind of clothes do you have to wear to this job?" My face must have told the story, as all I could remember was men in shirts and ties, and in one case a guy in a dressy shirt without a tie. All had on decent slacks and dress shoes. Shirley said, "Come on, let's go up to the thrift store real quick to see if we can find some pants and shirts in your size. If they don't have anything, we'll still have time to run to Walmart for something." Shirley locked her place up, and I did the same, remembering to shut the bedroom window. The thrift store wasn't far and was about the same as the Goodwill, but bigger. Their hand-me-downs were not in as good a shape as those at the Goodwill, but it could have been because they were picked through faster. We did find 2 pair of slacks that fit and 3 dress shirts that were still nice, plus Shirley found some ties that were very nice. The shoe bin was just that. There were several bins of shoes. A bin for each size, but they were still pretty mixed up. I gave up after 15 minutes, saying that my military dress shoes will work. They are already shiny and are easy to clean up. Shirley had found a pair of jeans and a tank top for herself, along with another dress of the type she likes. I paid for everything, and we headed back to the apartment. Shirley said she needed to get my stuff in the washer real quick, as the pants needed to be hung to dry. She had me get out of the clothes I wore today, so she could wash them as well, so if I needed to, I could wear them in the morning. I started preparing dinner, but was interrupted and told in a firm tone that she would be back soon to finish it. She suggested I have a beer and relax by watching TV or something in the meantime. I put on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and followed her instructions. I opened a beer and sat down on the couch, flipping through the cable news. There wasn't much to watch, just the usual updates, with the new president trying to withdraw from Iraq as quickly as possible to satisfy his supporters. I think he understands the importance of our presence there and that we should stay a bit longer, if for no other reason than to help the Iraqi army. Politics and war are exhausting. It's easy to ignore the significance of war when it's not directly affecting us. We tend to forget about the reasons behind it when it's far away, as long as we can still enjoy our daily comforts like lattes or the latest movies. After dinner, I asked Shirley if she was up for a trip to Jonas. She agreed, but mentioned she'd need to be back in about an hour and a half to get my clothes ready for the next morning. We rode down to Jonas and had a beer. The place wasn't too crowded, and Shirley and I actually got to play a game of pool. We had a second beer before heading home. It felt good to get out and ride for a bit. Back home, I washed up the dishes while Shirley busied herself with laundry or something in the back. Around 10, she came in carrying my clean clothes on hangers. They looked good, almost like new. I thanked her and handed her a 10, asking if that was enough. She laughed and said, "Yep, $10, a good meal, and a warm place to sleep. Well worth it." I chuckled. "So I'm the one doing favors now?" She grinned. "Hey, I'm not complaining. Let me grab a shower. Be right back, wait up for me." I locked up the front door, checked the lock on the bike, cracked open the bedroom window, and turned off most of the lights. I had just settled down in front of the TV when Shirley came back, wrapped in a robe with her hair up in a towel. We sat on the couch, watched TV, and I helped brush out her hair. After a while, she offered to give me a massage, but I said, "Let's just curl up and get some rest. You've had a long day with all that laundry." She nodded. "I've got a few more folks giving me clothes to wash. That'll help cover my bills. And since you're pitching in for food, I'm doing all right. If my Bubba decides to come home, though, it might throw off my routine. He usually shows up with a stash and sticks around until it's gone. I don't know why, but I care about him. Maybe one day he'll get it together." Shirley was resting with her head on my shoulder when I noticed her breathing shift. She had fallen asleep. I closed my eyes and followed her into rest. I was up at 6:30, showered, but ate a prepared breakfast before dressing in color-coordinated clothes Shirley handed to me. I tied the tie and checked out the stranger in the mirror. Some guy I didn't know. Shirley asked, "I have a key so I can clean this place up. You can give me $25 a week for housekeeping now that you have a job. That way I'll have your supper ready for you when you get home, okay?" She already had the key, but I was having some misgivings. Were we getting too close? Tom would tell. When I went to Ms. White's office at 7:45, she said, "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. May I call you Chad?" I nodded. Then after she looked at me, I smiled and said, "Yes, ma'am." "Okay, sign these papers, and I'll show you where your desk is." Once Ms. White had the papers in the folder with my name on it, We went next to her office at a desk that butted up against her office wall. This will be where you will work most of the time. You will be answering the phone for me, as well as the other normal secretarial duties. An older lady came in and sat at a desk just opposite mine. Ms. White said, "Julie, I want you to meet Chad Johnson." Chad, Julie Preston. She is Ms. Castle's secretary. When I'm unavailable for questions, Julie would be a great person to ask. Julie Preston at first had a scowl on her face, but was smiling from the compliment. Ms. White said, "I need to take you out to the counters and let you work with the girls out there today. You'll work out there all of today to learn the procedures. Tomorrow we'll go on a more regular schedule." Out behind the counter, Ms. White called all of the clerks to her and said quickly, "Before we open this morning, I want to introduce Mr. Chad Johnson. He will be my new temp while my secretary is out on maternity leave. This morning I want him to work with you, Francine, and you, Marcia. This afternoon, we'll pick 2 more of you to teach him. Teach him well so he can relieve you for breaks." The person Ms. White had pointed to as Francine came to me and said, "Let's get to my window and start. Just listen and watch while I do the first one. I'll explain each form as I go along, so you'll have an idea." Her area was neat and orderly. On her right was a set of bins like you would see at a post office where mail was sorted into. Each bin was labeled with numbers 1 through 60. Wow, 60 different forms. The first person was a girl that had been laid off from Albertsons as they had closed some stores. Francine pointed at a form that was under glass on her counter. Under her nail it said, "Standard first file, listing the number 1. Francine reached up to the top left of her sorting bins and pulled out form number 1. She handed it to the girl and said to go fill it out and come back to the window and wait till Francine was done with the person she was helping. Francine turned to me and said, "It'll get busier and the form's harder, just wait for it." She looked down at her computer and it had a number flashing on it. Francine pointed at that number, picked up her phone and dialed, announcing over the PA the number that was flashing on the screen to come to her counter number. The next soul came to the window, told about the same story, and received form number 1 and was told to go fill it out. When someone came back with the form filled out, the information was typed into the computer. The screens were easy and had directions throughout. This went on until 10 when Francine said, "I guess you can handle this 15 minutes. I'll be right back." I was able to handle a citizen and a half before Francine got back. She took over and told me to go to the next booth to relieve a girl named Betty. Betty turned the window over to me halfway through going through a filled-out form, telling me she would be back. At 10:30, I moved another notch down and relieved Mary, and at 10:45 I relieved June. When I went back to Francine at 11, she took me to Marcia, who said, "You're lucky, Chad. You only have to work with me for an hour before I go to lunch. I suppose Ms. White will take you for another interview and get you back on time." I said, "She doesn't go till almost 1. Marcia said, "She is the smart one around here." Ms. White and I did go to lunch together again. She asked me about my military career and commented that her husband had wanted to be career Air Force, but his football career interrupted that plan. When we returned to work, she put me with another set of clerks to work with. By 5, I was tired and my stub was sore from being on my feet all day. Ms. White told me to see her in the morning and she would give me a time card to use from now on. When I got to the apartment, the front door was open and good smells greeted me. I walked in and Shirley said, "Open a couple of beers and sit. Supper is just about ready." I had just sat down with a couple of beers when Shirley brought 2 plates with meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans. She put a bowl of gravy on the table and sat down. "How's that? Good timing, if I do say so myself." We ate and chatted with Shirley telling me the apartment complex gossip and commenting on the clothes she had laundered. She said, "I separated your clothes into groups in your closet, so you know what goes with what. I'll switch the ties around, so you will give a different appearance most every day." After supper, I did the dishes while she took the clothes I had worn that day with her as she went to do more laundry. She was a hard worker. It seemed she put in a long day almost every day. When I went outside to find Shirley to tell her I was going for a ride, she said she was going to stay home because she thought her old man would call early tonight. I rode around the city sightseeing and made my way back to Jonas. There I had a beer, shot some pool, joked with the barmaid, and had a fun conversation with Big Millie. I asked her where there was a lifestyle gym, and she gave me directions to the nearest one, saying, "I go every evening after work. I go from about 5:30 to 6:30 or 7. I probably ought to eat first, but I eat afterward. Perhaps tomorrow I would eat later and go to the gym after work." I had my gym shorts, shirts, socks, and sneakers, so I didn't need to buy anything. I planned on going the next night. After parking the bike and going inside the apartment, I found a note from Shirley on the counter that said she would see me in the morning. I laid out my gym clothes and sneakers so they would be ready in the morning and went to bed. I slept well. I woke up to a soft and gentle greeting. When I opened my eyes, Shirley was smiling at me. She told me to take care of breakfast before she made mine. I tried to pull her close, but she gave me a quick kiss and told me to get ready for work. She promised to have breakfast ready as soon as I shaved and showered. For breakfast, we had pancakes and sausages, a good meal. Shirley noticed the gym clothes on the dresser and asked when I planned to go. I told her I was thinking of going after work. It's sort of on the way home, so I'd stop by for an hour or so, getting home around 7. If that was too late, I could start waking up earlier and go in the mornings, but I needed to keep up with my rehab. She said, "Okay, I'll plan on us eating around 7, then. That'll work, because I can probably finish all my laundry before you get back from the gym." Then she paused and asked, "Do you want me to pack a couple of meatloaf sandwiches for you today?" I made a big meatloaf, so there would be enough for sandwiches and another meal. I agreed, saying, "Sounds good. That'll save me the price of a Cuban." The day was different than usual. In the morning, I spent time typing up a bunch of letters for Ms. White, as well as answering calls for her. Most calls I passed on to her, but some were just irrelevant solicitations that had nothing to do with business. I did the mid-morning breaks, and later ate lunch with Julie Preston at our desks. She told me all about working for the state agency, and that it was pleasant to have someone across from her that was there to work and not just gab all day. Neither one of us gave out any personal information, but we had a decent chat while eating. She left to go somewhere for the rest of her lunch hour, so I went to the group that was in charge of finding prospective employers to see what kind of jobs they had available. Larry, a guy with a lot of female mannerisms, gave me a ton of information. He was actually pretty. If he had been wearing women's clothes, I probably would have flirted. As it was tempting, except that it kept coming back to the fact that he was a guy, not a girl. Later, back at my desk, Julie said, "I heard you met Larry. Did he make a pass?" "Sort of, but not overtly. He was very nice and helpful. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but if he had been wearing girls' clothes, I might have flirted." Julie laughed. "He is cute. I bet he doesn't have any problems finding boyfriends." After work, I fought traffic to the gym and had to go through registration confirmation at the desk. This was this location's first VA registration, so they had to keep making calls on how to handle the paperwork. It took 45 minutes for the bullshit, but I still wanted some exercise. I changed and used the treadmill for 20 minutes, getting a ton of stairs because of the shiny metal extension on my right leg. I used the machines for 15 minutes before I grabbed my clothes and headed home. Millie never did show up. I made the mental note to get a gym bag and lock for a locker. Shirley had supper waiting. We had warmed up meatloaf, boiled potatoes, and corn. After supper, Shirley asked if I was going riding, and I said I might. She said she wanted to go with me if I did, so I told her that we would do it after we both got on some riding clothes. When we took off, Shirley gave me directions to another bar back toward downtown. The place was a more commercial biker bar that was fairly standard, except this one had a liquor bar instead of just beer and wine. Shirley introduced me to several people as new to the area and her new neighbor. I noticed that several of the guys were wearing colors of a national club. It wasn't uncomfortable, but I sure knew I was being sized up. When it was getting late, I told Shirley it was time to go. She said one of the guys there would give her a ride home, so I nodded and left. I had been home for about 45 minutes and was in bed already when I heard a bike come up out front and leave. Less than 5 minutes later, Shirley came in the back door and crawled into bed. That was perfect. I let one of my old man's brothers give me a ride home, so when he checks up on me, he'll hear that you weren't acting like you were owning me. The guys even asked me to tell you that you were welcome to come by their clubhouse if you wanted. I told them you were a vet with a bad leg, and they said you were still welcome. If you want my advice, you can be friends with those guys, but don't go joining a bike club. Too much trouble. Shirley began acting playfully before bed. I wasn't naive, I knew what she was getting at. A bit of affection before sleep sounded nice. As things progressed, Shirley paused and handed me something, saying, "Use this, it'll help you last longer." We shared a close moment, full of energy and movement, and after it was over, I got up to take care of things. Back in bed, Shirley remarked with a chadle, "And no mess this time, less laundry for me." Friday morning, I was up early, had breakfast, and made it to work by 7:45. Julie came in and asked, "Want some coffee?" "Sure," I said. "Where can I grab a cup?" "Come with me, I'll show you the lunchroom. Ms. White should be doing this, but she's slacking today." Julie led me to the lunchroom, where Larry stood at the fancy coffee machine. When he saw me, he quickly poured a cup. I handed it to Julie, and Larry, visibly flustered, poured another one for me. "Cream or sugar?" he asked in a husky tone. "Black is fine," I replied. Then I turned to Julie. "Can we drink coffee at our desks?" Larry lightly touched my arm and said, "Sure, you can have drinks at your desk, just be careful not to spill anything on the keyboard or phone." Julie was stifling a laugh at Larry's enthusiasm, but I gently closed the moment with, "I'll grab a cup for Ms. White too, and then we'll head back. Got a ton of work to get through today." Larry looked a little disappointed, but it was nearly start time anyway. I had just set Ms. White's coffee on her desk when she walked in. "Well, thank you, Chad. That was thoughtful." I could use coffee this morning. Ms. White, I keep forgetting to ask where do I get my time card, and where's the clock? Oh shoot, I forgot to give you one. Well, it's Friday, and you'll be preparing the new card soon, so I'll just jot one down for your first 3 days. Today ends the current pay cycle, so you'll get your first paycheck next Friday. On Monday, we'll go over how to fill out time cards and run payroll. The state prints the checks that aren't direct deposit. They usually arrive by Thursday or Friday. For now, get started on whatever's on your plate, and I'll bring you the materials. Ms. White came to my desk in about 10 minutes to have me access a program on our network. She gave me her password to get into it and had me access the list of current employees. We went through the names as she checked them off her list. My name was in the J's, so I was happy to see I was already entered into the system. Ms. White stopped me at my name and typed in my 3 days' hours and entered my rate of pay, where she entered $14 instead of $12. She looked at me and smiled. You've been to work on time and have completed everything I asked. Plus, I'm told you are an asset out at the counter. You deserve more than 12. They had a special printer for time cards. Ms. White showed me where the cards were stored. We watched as the little laser printer spit out cards at phenomenal speed. When it was done, Ms. White took me back by the lunchroom and showed me the time clock in the rack where the cards were displayed. All were labeled alphabetically using the person's last name, except for an area labeled temps. Put the cards into the spaces labeled. Then for the cards with the red printing at the top that say temps, you can put those in any order. Put the new ones behind the same names on this week's. She reached up and pulled off 3 names and said, those 3 no longer work here. So if you have a card for any of them, just bring it back to me. By the time I was finished with the time cards, it was time for me to give the morning breaks, so I hustled out to the counters for the 10 o'clock break. An hour later, I went back to give Ms. White the 3 cards that were extra from the people who no longer worked for the department. In a blink of an eye, it was lunchtime and Julie said, let's eat in the lunchroom. I'm dying to see what Larry does next. I don't know, Julie. It's not nice to tease someone like that. He may get the wrong idea, and I have to tell you, I really like what women have to offer. It'll be all right. I'll protect you, Julie said. Besides, you need to meet some of the other women who work here. There are some really nice, cute single girls that work here too. As much as that matters, there are some married women that will do more than flirt with you as well. My lunch today was 2 meatloaf sandwiches again. That meatloaf went a long way. Today, I also had a Coke, a bag of chips, and a good time talking to and being flirted with by lots of women. It was already common knowledge that a disabled vet was a temp for Ms. White. They knew I was single, that I had lost a leg, and all my personal information. How do you guys know so much about me? I asked in general. A cute little black chick across from me blushed and said, you're in the computer. Everything you put on your application is there so any of us can read it. Julie quickly said, we're not supposed to use that information for personal use, but it's okay for us to just look. I nodded smiling and continued eating. Julie said, as you can see, he doesn't talk much. It's amazing how much more work I get done with him over there instead of our girl Gabby. When she comes back, she'll be so full of stories it'll take a week before I get anything done. The little girl across from me asked, are you going out doing anything tonight or tomorrow night? I looked at her trying to figure out why she would ask. Probably why? Do you want to take me somewhere? This time she really blushed. I always think it's cute the way black chicks blush. They are more purple than red, depending on how dark-skinned they are. Maybe. Some of us girls here are going out to Hard Rock tonight. You could meet us out there if you want. They have a neat nightclub that has some good music, plus you can play the machines if you want. They even have card games out there. That might be a little rich for me right now. I should probably keep a lower profile for a while until I get some money ahead. As far as gambling, that's a definite no-no for a long while. I've never been lucky gambling. The little girl didn't let up though, so what will you do? You said you might go out. I might ride a few places, have a beer here and there, meet some people, shoot some pool. Larry said, ride to some places? How are you going to ride? On my Harley, I said, smugly proud of my bike. Oh, Larry groaned, be still my heart. The man even rides a Harley Davidson. The little girl said, oh Larry, get over it. You can tell Chad likes girls. Another girl next to the talkative one said, how about giving me a ride tonight? You can take me to Jonah's, or even to a couple of other biker bars I know. I can show you around. The little black girl glared at the girl sitting next to her. I thought we were going to try to get him to go out with all of us. You want to hog him? Well, he said he couldn't afford the Hard Rock. I might as well put my dibs in to show him around. The little black girl asked, can you only ride one person at a time on your motorcycle? Yep, only one at a time, when I do let someone ride with me. Larry said, would you give me a ride? I can show you some interesting places and some interesting bars. I laughed. I'm sure you can, Larry, but I might not be very comfortable at some of the places you like. Don't knock it until you've tried it. Honey, Larry said sexily. The girl next to the black girl said, quit it. Larry, you're being too aggressive. You'll never get a guy acting like that. Well, you two are being pretty aggressive, Larry said defensively. I should be able to ask too. I had finished my lunch, so I asked, how about you two telling me your names, and then we can decide where at the Hard Rock I should meet you. I can't afford a long night in an expensive club, and I don't have fancy clothes, but I'll go out with you guys for a while tonight. The little black girl beamed. Great, I'm Tiani. The white girl with the blonde hair next to her said, I'm Judy, and you can wear what you have on, but you don't have to wear a tie. 3 more girls came over and introduced themselves. A dark brunette was Brandy, another dark-skinned girl was Nora, and a light redhead with lots of freckles and a happy smile was Frida. I looked at them all and said, I take it you are all at least 21 and legal. They all nodded in unison. If they weren't so serious-looking, I would have laughed at the synchronized head movement. When and where? Tiani said, I can pick you up if you don't want to drive. Brandy said, I have a new car. Why don't I pick you up? Before someone else said anything I said, Tiani asked first, so I'll ride with her. Why don't some more of you ride with her too? That way there won't be so many cars there. Nora said, look guys, I can use my dad's van. How about I take all of us in the van? There's only 6 of us, and it will hold 7. I had to remind them, remember girls, I can't afford to drink all night. I just started work and haven't earned anything yet. You know where I'm living, and that's why I'm living there. It's what I can afford right now. There's nothing wrong with where you live, Chad. Frida said, we are all roommates and live in a big house together. With 6 of us, we can afford to live in a fancy area with a pool. You'll have to come out to swim. Can you do that with a fake leg? I take it off to swim, Frida. Okay, girls, I'm in apartment 22 across from the manager's office. When will you pick me up? Tiani looked at Nora. Nora said, I'll pick up Dad's SUV on the way home. How about we pick you up around 8? The first show doesn't start till 9, so we'll be there in plenty of time. Is that okay? Sounds like it's going to be a very late night, girls. Just keep in mind that I can't be a high roller gentleman tonight and buy you all drinks. Brandy said, I'll tell you what, Chad. You've been good about all this, so how about we treat you tonight? We'll all take turns buying rounds. If you make it through 10 drinks, you'll be doing well. I had a thought. Who's the designated driver tonight? You could see I put a cloud over the party. Tiani said, I guess Nora is it. It's your car, so you have to be the one. Nora thought about it then said, my dad might come out, so I might get him to drive. Now that's something, Frida said. You're going to have your dad chaperone us out to the Hard Rock Cafe while we're trying to get into some guy's britches? Tiani protested, Frida, we're not doing that. We're just going out to have some fun with a new guy. Sure we are. I'm no shrinking violet. I'll tell it like it is. Chad, how about we just skip the Hard Rock and I'll show you my etchings in my room? Julie coughed. That's even more forward than Larry, Frida. It's true, Julie, Brandy sighed. All of us are looking at Chad and thinking, wow, a clean-looking guy just ready to pluck and something that rhymes with pluck. We go out looking and the clowns we find are drunks or smelly or dopers or just plain losers. If Frida is ready to herd him off for herself, she must be interested, considering. Tiani got in on the complaining. A lot of my type of guys act like we should just fall to our knees and give them BJs just because they're there. They think I'm stuck up because I don't drool over them. Nora looked at me. It's kind of a stretch for you to be interested in Tiani or me, but we're not prejudiced and you don't act like it. We're 2 fine little girls, if I do say so myself. You are all adorable and all very appealing, but I have to tell you, I'm still so new to being out in the world. I don't think I'm in the market for a long-term relationship yet. Brandy said, we aren't either, yet. We just want to have a guy or some guys that we can have a good time with that treat us like the ladies we can act like. If we're not ladies when you take us home, we want it to be our idea, not expected of us. Julie elbowed me. Now that's a compliment and a hell of an invite if I ever heard one. Say yes, dummy. These are some choice girls. I looked at my watch and got up. You know where I live, right, Nora? 8 o'clock. Then I smiled and turned to Frida. And Frida, can I get a rain check on checking out your etchings? Brandy broke in before Frida could answer. Mine too. And yes, you can have a rain check. Frida smiled at me, winked, and nodded. It was my turn to blush. Little Tiani came around the table. She pulled my head down and kissed me on the cheek. You're fun, Chad. I can't wait till tonight. Before leaving the lunchroom, I poured 2 cups of coffee and took them back for Ms. White and me. On the way, Julie said, that was something. I've never seen those girls so aggressive. You're going to be the talk of the place before 5. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but you're going to have a rep real quick. Ms. White smiled happily and accepted the cup of coffee. I told her, I've caught up on correspondence and filing. What do you have for me until it's time for me to give breaks? You've done everything? I thought you had more to do before we did the time cards. No, ma'am. I'm done with everything pending. There's really not that much to do. I'll ask Julie. Perhaps I can help her for a while. Ms. White looked a little funny. My regular secretary is always snowed under. Are you sure you've done everything? Come on out and help me look. I think I've done everything, but I might have missed where more work is kept. Ms. White came out to my desk, looked in the drawers, and looked at the work pending file cabinet. All my inboxes were empty. My transcription files were complete, and all of the weekly reports that were due Monday were done. I said, I did everything according to the operating manual for this position. I pulled the little flip chart out and went through each of the cards. Ms. White said, Julie, do you have some work that you could use some help with? Chad is caught up on his stuff. Not really, Ms. White. Chad is so quiet. We both get a lot more done than usual. I was going to offer to help him get caught up. He's already done all the Monday reports. The only thing he'll have to do Monday is the payroll, and that doesn't take long. Come with me, Chad, Ms. White said. Let's go see someone. We walked through the office to the far corner where Ms. White told his secretary that she wanted to see Mr. Harkins. The lady used her phone before saying, Go on in. Mr. Harkins can see you. Hi, Metairie. Good to see you. What can I do for you? The man said as he turned to me, extending his hand. I'm Jordan Harkins, and you are? I said, Chad Johnson. Jordan Harkins said, Please, sit down and tell me what I can do for you. Ms. White said, It's what I can do for you, Jordan. I want you to get to know Mr. Johnson. He came on board Wednesday as my temp secretary. You know my girl has been out on maternity leave since last week. My department puts out a lot of paper. I dictate a couple of dozen letters a day, and I know I push out 50 or so pieces paper a day to be filed. In the short time he's been here, Chad has learned the counter to give breaks. Plus, he is totally caught up on my dictation, all the filing, and all of the reports due out from my department through Monday. My office has never been this caught up. I've already stepped Mr. Johnson, but we need to find him a job with more responsibility, Jordan. Chad is doing far more than could be expected. I see, Metairie. Perhaps you could talk to some of the other department managers and your man could assist their secretaries and catch them up. Yes, sir, Ms. White said. I can do that, but I think we might wish to use Mr. Johnson for some of the outside positions that are open. Does he meet the qualifications? Jordan asked. That's the problem. All of those positions require a degree, and Mr. Johnson has not attended college. He was recently released from the military because of an injury. I think we should find him a demanding position and waive the degree requirement. You can do that, Jordan. Oh, Metairie, you're always bending some rules for one of your people. Jordan folded his fingers together on his desk and said, I have an investigator position that reports directly to me that I haven't been able to fill. You know it is a delicate job that has to be handled discreetly, but is necessary sometimes. Do you think he could fulfill that position? Easily, Jordan. If you want, I'll spend the rest of the day briefing him on the job. He could begin with some of your backlogged small investigations to learn the way. Jordan turned to me. Chad, the position I'm referring to involves investigating the hiring practices of some medium-sized companies to determine if there are any areas where they might not be following equal opportunity guidelines. Your role would be to discreetly interview their HR personnel, build rapport, and report your findings. It's important that you document your interviews thoroughly so we can follow up with companies that may need attention. You'll also ensure that larger companies are adhering to the necessary legal documentation and reporting requirements. This is a sensitive role, and you'll report directly to me, with copies sent to Ms. White. She personally handles your reports, bypassing her secretary. It's going to be a demanding job, as we're currently over 6 months behind on our work. You will be provided with an agency vehicle for daily use, and travel expenses will, of course, be reimbursed. He paused for a second looking at me and asked, What do you think? Sounds interesting. Will I still be a temporary employee? Ms. White was shaking her head no, but Jordan said, Yes, you will for at least 60 days. That will give me time to evaluate your performance. I had to ask, if I am still a temporary, that means I can still look for employment? I mean, this will give me an opportunity to do some job shopping, if I'm correct. Jordan huffed a little. Well, you would be employed by us during this time. You should be giving 100% effort and not job shopping if I put you in a position like that. But sir, if I'm but a temporary employee, paid like a temporary employee, with no guarantee of a possible future here, wouldn't I be dumb not to look for a permanent position somewhere? The man leaned back in his chair then said, Mr. Johnson, if you will excuse us, I'd like to speak to Metairie for a few minutes. Ms. White said, Go back to the department and perhaps assist Julie. You'll be relieving for breaks in a few minutes anyway. I left, and since it was really time to be on the counter, I passed by Julie and told her I was on the way for relief. She came with me, as she relieved for people as well. I saw some of the fabulous 5 down in that area. The 5 girls came to mind, and I automatically began thinking of them in a happy way as the Fab 5. They were pretty funny and obviously fed off each other when they were in a group, one trying to be more outrageous than the other. When the breaks were over, Julie took me to the break room. You're supposed to take your break when you finish with the counter. I noticed you haven't been taking a break lately. That's an extra half hour a day you're using to get work done. That's why you're so far ahead. Back in the department, Ms. White called me into her office. Close the door and have a seat, Chad. She leaned over her desk and said, what you just witnessed is what you would be investigating. You just witnessed discrimination. Jordan wants a man of color to have that position, but we haven't found one to fill the spot yet. He felt he could put you in the position temporarily, then let you go when he found another man to his liking. I've just finished telling Jordan exactly what I'm telling you, so it's no secret that I'm letting you know. Now he's embarrassed that he's been so obvious about his prejudice. I've already heard how you interacted with Tiani and Nora and are going out this evening with a group of them. I'm proud to know you. Chad, you are a gentleman, and you are not prejudiced. You would make an excellent investigator and should be paid the normal salary and not temp wages. Because of Jordan's prejudice, I don't want you to work for him. He's agreed to let you have the military human resources job and waive the degree requirement. That might be a better place for you anyway. The job pays decent too. Remember, this is a federal job with federal benefits. 1. You get a clothing allowance as you are to dress impeccably to impress prospective employers as well as the ex-military people you will assisting. 2. You will be given a per diem for meals and expenses for prospective employers as well as the people you will be finding jobs for. 3. You will be issued a cell phone, for work only, so you can be reached while you are in the field. That's how the lady who was working here scammed everyone. And 4th, probably the most important to you right now, your annual starting salary is $45,700, about $3,800 a month. Do a good job, and you can go way up from there. She looked me right in the eye and asked, would you work for me in that position? The thought of how important a job it was going to be had my head spinning. Thank you for the confidence in me, ma'am. There's no way I can turn down a job like that. I think I'll need a lot of your help for a while to figure out how to do a good job. You would have that anyway, Chad. That is one of our more important positions, considering all of the men and women coming out of the service right now. If the new president cuts the defense budget very much, there could be a lot of men looking for work. The neat thing is that you can work with all of the other advocates in all of our offices nationwide to find available positions for them. You should be a perfect match for the job considering your history. I want to work for you, Ms. White. Teach me, and I'll make you proud. She sat back in her chair smiling and said, I'll teach you, but you'll have to call me Metairie. You and I will be a lot less formal now that you are in this new position. Metairie leaned forward and began typing into her computer. When she finished, she smiled at me. You are now an official employee of the USA, with all of the benefits that go with it. In 90 days you will be offered health insurance, but you already have federal benefits for that. Ours may be easier to use. You'll have to choose. Also, now that you are a federal employee, you will be eligible for any other federal position you may be qualified for. I do suggest that you begin night classes or some form of degree course. You will progress faster within the agency and any other government office if you were to do that. It was as if another big weight was off me. This was more money than I really was going to need, but it was enough that if I wanted, I could find a better place to live. Right now I should just save some money, and that felt good. As some paper spit out from her printer, she pulled the sheets to her to read. Metairie said, okay, here is your first 6 months clothing allowance and 2 weeks per diem. Any extra you have to spend on others, please document everything and be sure to get receipts so you can be reimbursed. You'll have a credit card soon, but this should hold you for now. Go out to the cashier and present this to her. She'll give you cash or a check or some of each, however you want. Now, since you are a salaried employee, get the hell out of here, get your money and run. Go home and enjoy your weekend. I'm going to need some help buying the right kind of clothes. I'm not very fashion conscious and I haven't bought lots of clothes for dress. I've been a uniform guy with just jeans as my casual dress. Metairie looked at me a second and wrote something on one of her cards. This is my cell phone. Call me tomorrow and I'll go with you to pick out some clothes. We'll get you some nice clothes at a discount. I know where the smart guys go to get quality stuff. Perhaps my husband will come along. He's a real classy dresser. I'll do that. It should be reasonably early tomorrow, okay? I'd like to get that out of the way. Thank you for helping me so much. It's my pleasure to help someone progress. I'm going to have you help me anyway, so don't thank me too much yet. I left, said goodbye to Julie, and headed toward the cashier. The lady looked at my letter and began asking how I wanted the funds. I told her I didn't know how much it was, so she said, you get a $54 a day per diem, but you should only draw like $40 until you get your personal accounting set up. Your clothing allowance for your first 6 months is $3,270. I was staggered. How about $2,500 in cash and the balance in a check, so I can deposit it? Coming right up. Do you need some money to take those girls out tonight? It's not my money. I have to buy clothes and have money for expenses. I can't use that money for tonight. I can use some of my savings though, now that I have a real job. Bet you can, Chad. Have a good time with those girls tonight, and be safe. Don't be drinking and driving. I heard what you were telling them, and that was good to hear. Congratulations on the new job. I'll look forward to working with you. I signed for the money and check and headed to the bank in my '95 Chevy S10. Funny, isn't it? Goodwill to Gucci in a week. The bank posed the next problem. I asked for the head teller as I figured she would help me the quickest. After explaining my problem, she suggested I get a bank debit card. She could have one issued to me immediately that I could access, just like a credit card. When I filled out the form, she suggested I apply for a credit card as well. If I were to go over my deposits, the credit card portion would kick in so I wouldn't be overdrawn. I told the head teller that I had just gotten out of the service and had only been employed a few days. I told her my new position with the salary and that the money I was depositing was clothing allowance and per diem. All of a sudden, I was being shown a lot more attention and a lot more courtesy. It was right this way, sir, and can I get you something, sir, and how else can I help you, sir? It was almost too funny for words. They gave me the debit card that had a $5,000 credit limit. I didn't care about the credit limit, but now all of my money in both the checking and savings was available when I needed it. Before I left the bank, I asked the branch manager if he had any positions open and who I could contact at their home office for job opportunities for veterans returning to civilian life. The man gave me several names, plus a handout with the corporate hiring information. He said, confidentially, if you have anyone that might be interested in a starting teller position, I have openings, plural, right now. Send me some good people and let me get them started in the banking industry. I took his personal card and said I would get back to him. Knowing that a teller position was not the highest paying position around, I understood how they could be open, but it just goes to show you. There are jobs available, just not a bunch of big buck jobs. That's not true either. I was just given a big buck job just for doing what I was being paid for and was supposed to do. At the apartment, I noticed a filthy Harley sitting outside apartment 25 and wondered if this was as a result of last night. The front door was locked, but Shirley was at the counter putting something together for supper. You're home early, how come? I opened the fridge and pulled out a beer. Got a new job today and was sent home early. Is it a better job? You betcha, I smiled. It's going to be a good job. They even gave me money to buy clothes. I won't be able to help you for a couple of days. My old man showed up this morning. I saw a bike out front. He should butt it in the back. Take the chain so he'll have it, and I'll go to Home Depot and get another chain and lock. Shirley nodded. You don't mind if I feed him too, do you? I'll eat less to make sure, okay? No problem, Shirl. Around here we all eat. Should you go get him so I can meet him, or what? Shirley thought a second. No sense in waking him yet. He rode all night to get in. He'll wake up, and I'll get him a beer and feed him. He doesn't know I'm cooking for you to get fed myself, but I'll tell him later. It's a good enough deal, he ain't gonna bitch. Thank God he slept soundly enough that I was able to get all the laundry done I needed to do. Shirley put a big pan in the oven, then stood up and said, that has to cook for an hour before we can eat. I'll get him up soon, but you go to the store and get your chain and lock, and I'll take this back to the apartment. You ain't going to have a bed warmer for a while. Get used to it, or get some auditions. I laughed at the audition reference. Actually, a bunch of girls from work are taking me out to the Hard Rock tonight on them. I told them I couldn't afford to take myself out there, and for sure not a bunch of women, so they are taking me. I might get lucky, who knows? Are you a gambler? No way. I don't gamble my money, not when every day of life is a gamble and probably higher stakes. I'm glad, Shirley said. Gambling, drinking, narcotics, that's how a body gets in the poorhouse. That's why I'm doing laundry and turning tricks. That's why I'm ashamed of myself all the time. A tear ran down her face. Don't be hard on yourself, Shirl. You said it the other day. You do what you gotta do. Just keep doing a little more for me, like keeping the house and keeping my clothes up, and I'll pay you decent. Don't be turning any tricks while I'm around. Do your laundry and housekeeping, and there will be enough for you. Perhaps your man will settle down and stay this time. Shirley was sitting on a stool with tears coming hard. The other day, one of the guys that uses me came by, and I just spread him for an easy 50. I should have sent him to see one of the other girls, but I just hated to pass up a 50. That's why I made you use a rubber. The guy won't use one, so now I have to go to the health department to get checked again. Damn, I'm one miserable 304. Stop feeling sorry for yourself right now. Get yourself together. Take a six-pack with you with the chain and lock and go wake up your man so he can get cleaned up for supper. I'll go to the store for mine and pick up some more beer. It shouldn't take me more than 20 minutes. I left locking the front door, knowing she would be watching the back. It took all of the 20 minutes to get the chain and lock because the checkout line was so backed up. I got home and immediately chained up my bike, running the chain around the cases and through the wheels. I walked over to liquor store and bought another case of cold beer. Hate to run out on a weekend. Back in the apartment, I popped a beer and turned on the TV to watch the news. There was a lot about the jobs being created by all the federal projects, but as I saw today, they are jobs, just not people willing to do them or people qualified to get them. I wondered where Jordan was going to get his investigator. Who cares? I had a great position now that might even be better, especially with the clothing allowance. Shirley came in the back door followed by a big burly guy with a full beard and balding head. Shirley pointed at me and said, "That's Chad Johnson, the guy who owns that bike out back and the guy that's been trading out my cooking for my meals. Chad, this the Bart Simpson. I ain't joking, it's his real name." I nodded and reached out to take his offered hand. I went to the fridge and took out a beer, offering it to him. He took it, and I got another one out for Shirley and offered it to her. She took hers, then I got another for myself. Pointing at the bottle on the counter, I said, "You want some Jack to go with that?" "Nah, this is good," Bart said. Shirley went to work on dinner while Bart sat on the couch, and I sat in the big chair. Bart appraised me and said, "Shirley said you were a Crip. Heard in the service?" I nodded and pulled up my pants leg to show my metal leg. "You get around pretty good, but I see you have a cane and a crutch by the door. You need those?" "The cane more in the crutch." Shirley said from the kitchen area, "He don't talk much." "He'll answer, but like I said, he don't talk much." Bart chuckled, probably a good man for it too. "What were you in, the Army?" "Marines." "If you don't mind my asking, how'd you lose your leg?" "An RPG, didn't miss." "I hear that all the time. What's an RPG?" "Rocket-propelled grenade." "How close was it?" My leg was stuck out behind me when the grenade hit the track I was hiding behind. "Track?" I smiled. "Field name for a tank or APC, you know, armored personnel carrier." "Well, at least you had others with you to help." "They all died, but one guy who lost an arm." "How'd you keep from getting killed?" "We killed the other guys." "But you were both badly injured." "We patched each other up and took the dead guys and tracked back to the base. The radio didn't work, so that's all we could do unless we wanted to just lay there and die." "That's some story. How long were you in the hospital?" "Over there a week, Germany a month, and back here almost 11 months. Shirley had set the table and said, 'Supper's ready. Come get it.'" "Hey, thanks. Chad, for letting me eat with you. I guess I should thank you for feeding Cheryl too. I ain't too good about sending money." I nodded, then said, "When I eat, others get to eat too. It's the way I was raised. Besides, your lady does my laundry, and I pay her to keep the place clean too." She needed the money, I needed the help. "You're pretty talkative tonight." "Chad, is it because it's to a man?" "Like you said, Shirley, he asks," I answer. We ate the roast with potatoes and carrots, and had some of the cake with the creamy icing for dessert. Shirley washed up the dishes real quick, and I said, "I got a date with a bunch of women, so I have to get ready to go out. I best shave and take a shower, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. If there's something happening somewhere tomorrow, let me know. I'd like to get to know more of the riding community. I'll meet Shaw to my brothers. That's the riding community I know. It's a good club, but I like to roam. I don't do good staying in one place. See you tomorrow. Shirley, if you guys go to Jonah's, ask around to see what's going on. Let me know in the morning." Bart and Shirley left, so I showered and dressed in some clean clothes with one of the neat dress shirts Shirley had picked out. The outfit looked pretty good for some Goodwill or thrift store hand-me-downs. At 7:50, a Chrysler Town and Country pulled up next to my pickup and 5 girls piled out of the van. Seeing me through the screen door, the bunch came storming in. "Would you look at this? Not bad, and clean too for a guy," Frida said. Brandy was standing in the doorway to the bedroom. "The bed's made, and there are no dirty socks or underwear lying on the floor. Shit, Chad might be a candidate for Larry after all." Tiani opened the fridge and said, "He's only got 2 beers left in here, but there's some leftover pot roast that's still warm." Nora added, "There's half a bottle of Jack Daniels too. Anyone want a drink?" Judy, still standing by the door, turned to Chad. "Don't mind them. They're just being curious. They can't believe a guy can live alone and actually keep the place decent. Since you're a Marine, I'd honestly be surprised if things weren't squared away. My dad was a Marine too. He's still super particular about keeping things in order." They kept chatting and taking stock of the apartment while I went around locking the back door, turning off lights, and shutting off the TV. When I reached the front door, I asked, "Ready to take me to the Hard Rock?" Judy put her arm around mine and said, "Take me. Chad, take me." The other 4 headed for the van, so I locked up and joined them, sitting in the middle seat. We went to the east side of the city to find the place with a giant guitar outside, marking the place. After parking, we walked into the lobby area and in through the casino. The place was busy with lots of people feeding the machines with cards. No coins, just cards on most of them. They had some table games and a big card-playing area that looked to be some kind of poker tournament. Back in through the lounge, passing by a fancy dining area, we arrived in the main nightclub to hear AC/DC beginning their show. The girls knew one of the men at the door because he hustled us straight to a decent table midway to the show stage. A waitress was instantly taking our order while the show was cranking. By the time the group was doing Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, we were on our second drinks and singing along with the musicians and the rest of the crowd. It was a great show and well worth whatever it cost for us to be in there. When the show wrapped up, our third round of drinks arrived, and the girls decided it was time for some snacks. They ordered mushrooms, snails, shrimp, oysters, plenty of good food to go with the evening. I was sipping my third beefeater and definitely starting to feel it. Brandy, with her ever-lively energy, was on one side of me, and the charming, witty Tiani was on the other. Across from me sat the enigmatic Judy, casually tapping her foot against my knee beneath the table, trying to get my attention. "You all really know how to keep things interesting, even in public," I said with a grin. "I love it." Nora, sitting beside Tiani, leaned forward and reached under the table toward me and said playfully, "I think I've got a good idea for how I want this night to go." Tiani batted Nora's hand away, chuckling, "Don't be so pushy, you might mess up something we're all trying to enjoy." Frida laughed, "I know exactly what I'm hoping for later." Brandy chimed in, "Let's head to the disco lounge and get some dancing in. Come on." As we got up, I noticed Brandy and Judy speaking with the waitress, who scribbled something on a ticket that Brandy signed. The disco area was packed, but we still managed to snag a table right by the dance floor. I hadn't tried dancing since losing my leg, but it looked like my physical therapy was about to be put to the test. As soon as we sat down and placed a drink order, Brandy grabbed my arm and pulled me onto the dance floor. I tried to explain I wasn't sure I could manage it, but she wasn't taking no for an answer. Brandy started dancing in front of me with high energy, clearly trying to encourage me. I began moving the best I could, using my prosthetic leg to pivot and shuffling in rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but I focused on letting my body feel the music. I even attempted a moonwalk, and the other girls at the table erupted in cheers and applause. I must have done something right. When the music changed, Tiani grabbed my arm and led me back out. I tried another moonwalk, and once again, the crowd responded with claps and cheers. Then came Frida with a slow song, thankfully. We moved together in time with the music, her rhythm easy to follow and calming. Next, Nora danced with me to another slow tune, her style smooth and graceful. Judy followed with a dance that shifted between slow and upbeat tempos. By the end of it, I was catching my breath. When Brandy stepped forward for another go, I held up my hand and said, "Let me breathe, grab a drink, and take a minute to recover. You ladies are keeping me on my toes out there, it's a workout." Brandy laughed. "Who said we want you to keep up? We want the Marine who takes the lead." I grinned. "A Marine is always in control," I said. "You're just making it a little too easy to forget that." Tiani gave me an admiring look and said, "You're like something out of a storybook, Chad. A strong, dependable guy who's actually fun." Nora laughed and added, "Tiani, you've been reading way too many of those romance novels." Tiani giggled. "Maybe, but it's fun pretending." We danced another round and enjoyed another drink. Before we knew it, it was already 1:30 a.m., and the girls agreed it was probably time to head home. Judging by their energy, though, it didn't look like anyone was quite ready to call it a night. "How about we grab some breakfast at the cafe before heading out?" I suggested. "Might be a good way to let the night wind down a bit." Nora nodded. "Good idea. I didn't drink designated driver tonight. We can either drop you off at your place or you're welcome to ride along with us. Your call." I looked at the 5 lively girls and joked, "There's no way I can keep up with all of you, guess I'll just head home alone." I smiled. "Let's grab some breakfast. My treat. Maybe with food in us, we can all think a little more clearly." We headed to a nearby cafe. Since we made quite an entrance with our laughter and energy, the staff seated us in the back so we wouldn't disturb the other diners. Once the coffee started flowing and everyone had eaten, the group got into a lively, playful debate. Brandy stood up, grinning. "Think you can handle hanging out with 2 or 3 of us tonight?" Before I could answer, she winked and added, "Yeah, I thought 3, then returned to the group with a triumphant smile. A moment later, all 5 women stood. Judy cheerfully announced, "It's settled, you're hanging out with Brandy, Tiani, and Nora tonight. Then tomorrow morning it's breakfast with Frida and me. You'll be wiped out by Monday, man. Don't I get a say in this?" I asked with a laugh. "Nope," Brandy replied. "You're officially stuck with us until tomorrow noon." I wasn't sure if this was a great idea or a crazy one, but I decided to go with the flow. Worst case, I figured I could always call a cab if things got too hectic. They all lived together in a large, beautiful home in Old Carrollwood. The house had a gated entrance, and they parked right near the front door. Inside, the place was even more impressive. Brandy took my arm and motioned toward the stairs. "Tiani, Nora, grab us some drinks and meet me upstairs. I've got the biggest room. Let's go?" The next morning, as we were getting ready, Nora asked, "Do you have to head home today, or can you stay and hang out?" I smiled sadly. "I've got to go. I'm meeting up with Ms. White and her husband to shop for some clothes. She's helping me find the right stuff at a good price." Nora perked up. "We should go with you, help pick some things out." Tiani replied, "If we all show up, Ms. White might notice something changed from yesterday. Let's keep it low-key for now." Frida nodded and said, "All right, let's help him get moving, it's almost 9." As I dressed, they watched with curiosity as I attached my prosthetic leg. Once I had it on and we were heading out, Tierney said, "You walked so well last night you were dancing, even moonwalking." Brandy chimed in, "Yeah, and honestly, I forgot all about your leg with the way you moved. It was impressive." Frida added, "Same here. You've got such presence it's inspiring." I had taken a group shower with them earlier, which ended up being more fun than functional, filled with laughter and jokes as we helped each other navigate the crowded space. They had to help steady me a few times due to the tight quarters, and the whole thing felt more like a team effort than anything else. When I was dressed, they all decided to ride with Nora to drop me off at my apartment. They offered to come inside, but I convinced them I needed to contact Ms. White and get going. I promised to see them again Monday, and they took off. I called Ms. White, and she gave me directions to a well-known discount men's clothing store down in the Ybor Channel district. It was popular among sharp-dressed locals and savvy professionals. I put on my best pair of khakis and a freshly ironed sports shirt. When I arrived, the place looked like a dive from the outside like an old warehouse, but the parking lot was full of Cadillacs and Lincolns. Inside, it was a packed house of customers and racks of suits, slacks, and shoes. Ms. White greeted me alongside a tall man I recognized vaguely. "Chad, this is my husband Reggie. Reggie, meet Chad Johnson, the young man I've been telling you about." Reggie was easily 6'3" or 4", muscular and fit. When we shook hands, his grip was firm, but not overbearing. "Nice to meet you, Chad," he said. "Metairie hasn't stopped talking about you since you started working with her." I smiled. "Thanks for helping me with the clothes. I'm not really into fashion. My dress code for years was just a uniform." Reggie grinned. "Don't worry, we'll get you set up. Metairie would dress you like a rock star if you let her, but I'll rein her in. We'll find something professional, sharp, and age-appropriate. You're young, so let's start with some good sport coats and slacks." It took a bit to get the right size of coat, but soon the two of them had picked out a half-dozen very nice sport coats. My favorite was a herringbone with leather elbows. Reggie said all I need was a pipe to make me look like a professor. Using the sport coats that we had picked out, Ms. White picked out multiple pairs of slacks that went with more than one coat. I was pushing a large cart that had a hanger area that was already full as we went to the suits. There, we only picked out 5 suits, but their manufacturer's suggested price had me nervous. None of them were marked under $500. This had me going back to look at the suggested retail tagged on the sport coats. I quickly totaled up what we had already picked out and held up my hand. I felt a little sick, but said, "Ms. White, Reggie, I only received $3,000 to buy clothes. I don't have a lot of extra money other than that. We're way over that amount already." Reggie slapped me on my back. "Shoot, Chad, you probably haven't reached $1,500 yet. Not to worry. This place is a discount place that sells good stuff at 15 to 20 cents on the dollar. Those Brooks Brothers suits you have there are all marked as being all over 500, and I'll bet none of them is $100. If we go over, we'll trim it down, don't worry." I was pacified, but still concerned. Ms. White went nuts with shirts, and after I had tried on a couple of sizes of shirts, she picked out about 15. We walked over to the shoes where I found a pair of wing tips, a plain type of shoe in brown and black, plus 3 pair of slip-on shoes that were very nice. Ms. White said, "The only other thing we might look at is a couple of nice sport shirts. You know you can wear nice knit shirts under a sport coat and look very professional." Ms. White picked out some gaudy-looking shirts and Reggie just frowned and replaced them with some very nice, solid-color knits. The huge cart I was pushing was so full it would barely move. I wasn't worried about paying for the stuff, as if I didn't have enough, I would just put it back. At a checkout register, a man totaled everything and totally shocked me when he said, "Your order comes to $2,732.17. Ms. White said, "Oh, I forgot. You need socks. Let me get you some." When she came back, she had at least a dozen pair of socks. The sales clerk just put them in a bag with the shirts and said, "That will be your bonus." Reggie said, "This is Chad's first time here, so he doesn't know the rules yet. Pay the man, Chad, then he'll take you back to the tailor area." I gave the man my card and told him it was a debit card. He looked at it and said, "This is a credit card as well. Would you prefer debit or credit?" "Debit, please," I said, still sweating over getting out of there without blowing the entire $3,000 allowance. The next part took forever. A man and a woman had me try on every sport coat, every suit, and every pair of pants. One pair of pants apparently didn't fit the way they should, and the lady went out and came back with another pair in a smaller size. When they were done, the man said, "I can have 2 suits, 2 coats, and 2 pair of pants by this afternoon. The rest will be done Monday. Please allow enough time to try them on when you return to pick them up." The tailor took down my name and address, and when he asked for my phone number I said, "I don't have a phone, sir. Perhaps I'll get one today." Reggie said, "Take my cell number. It's 743-9292. The 92 registered then, and I looked hard at him. I didn't want to say anything yet, but I looked back and forth between Ms. White and him trying to figure out why she was working. When we went out of the store, Reggie said, "How about following us down to the parking garage and we'll have lunch at the restaurant?" Ms. White said, "You'll love it. They have a great menu. Please join us. Here, take this bag. This is a welcome home gift as a military man and a welcome to work gift from me. These ties will get you started." "You shouldn't do that. That's why I get the allowance," I protested. Ms. White just waved her hand at me. "Don't worry about it. It'll look like you overspent your allowance twice when people see you dress so well." I nodded and carried the bags of shirts, shoes, and socks to my truck. I followed the Mercedes SL down the street, pulling into the public garage across from an entertainment complex. I parked near their car and caught up to them, using my cane to move faster. I said when I got up to them, "When you gave the tailor your phone number, I remembered who you are. You're Reggie White, the defensive end from Philly, right?" He smiled broadly and nodded his head. Ms. White said, "Most people don't recognize him. It's nice that you did. We went to a fancy restaurant and were treated very special. Once seated and our drinks ordered, I had to ask, 'Ms. White, how come you're working? I'm sure you don't have to for the money.' My word, what would I do? Reggie is so busy with his restaurants and real estate offices, I would never see him anyway. I would be very bored staying home every day. This way I get out, go to different agency offices almost every day, and meet interesting people such as you." Reggie said it would be different if we were raising kids, but we haven't been blessed with any, so we keep ourselves busy with business adventures. Metairie loves her job and is happy to join me in the evenings at one of my places. "We have a great life, Chad," Ms. White asked, "so tell me about your night out with our adventurous group." "We went to the Hard Rock Cafe, but not for the casino. None of us gambled. We watched a great AC/DC show and spent the rest of the evening in the lounge dancing. They had me up for almost every dance. I was worn out by the time we left." "Which girls were they, Chad?" Reggie asked. Metairie answered for me. "You know them, Tiani, Nora, Judy, Frida, and Brandy. Those 5 are always doing things together. They live together." "Did you make it home last night, or did they kidnap you?" I didn't look up, but said softly, "We had an enjoyable evening." "Let it go, Metairie. This man is a gentleman, and gentlemen don't tell." "I'm just nosy is all," Ms. White said. "Those 5 act so forward sometimes. I was just wondering if they were all mouth, and all show, and no go." I grinned and blushed, and Ms. White said, "I'm glad you had a good time with them. You'll have to be circumspect about your relationship with them, as you will be sort of their superior." I nodded, but said, "They are all counter customer service people, so I won't be dealing with them much except to get referrals from them. I suppose you having a relationship with them wouldn't be bad. They are a crazy group. I still wonder why they ended up living with each other in a home Brandy's folks own. Judy's folks are equally well off, so you never know. Little Tiani's folks are pretty well fixed. Her dad was an NBA star when he was younger. One of her brothers is a star player at UF. You all will probably go to at least one game during the season. We had a great lunch, but when the time to get the check came, there wasn't any. I asked the waitress for the check as it was my treat, and she laughed and said, 'Just enjoy. Sir, you're with the owner. Ms. White, you said you couldn't buy me lunch, and I'm the one with the expense account.' Reggie laughed. She has nothing to do with it or to say about it. It's my restaurant and my treat. It was great to go shopping with you. Usually it's me that Metairie is dolling up. I think she uses me, and now you, as a doll to play dress up. Oh, Reg, I'm not that bad. I just love bargains and enjoy seeing a man dressed nice. Chad will look nice now at half the cost." "That is some place," I said, describing the store we had been at. "I'm surprised the place isn't mobbed." Ms. White said, "If this were closer to the 1st of the month, it would have been. A lot of the traffic is there during the week. A lot of businessmen who do not work regular hours show during the day." Reggie said, "The businessmen she's talking about are all pimps, dealers, or gangsters of one form or another. When you want to shop there, go during the early morning or on Saturday. Better atmosphere." When we left, Ms. White reminded me to pick up my clothes before going home as they should be altered by now. I thanked them for lunch and for showing me where to buy clothes and for helping me select what I needed. I watched as they left in their fancy Mercedes before I drove back to the store to pick up my clothes. When I went to the pickup register, the one lady who had helped me earlier said, "You're in luck. The tailors thought your entire order was a rush, so all of your clothes are ready for you to try on. Come this way, and let's make sure they all fit." Every coat and every pair of pants fit perfectly. While I was trying on clothes, I realized I didn't have any decent dress belts, so I asked the salesperson if she would pick out a couple of belts for me. She came back with 2 belts and a half dozen more ties saying, "Ms. White didn't get you enough when she was in, so I took the liberty to get you some more. I would want you to look perfect." The additional stuff was next to nothing compared to what I had spent already. It took me 2 trips out to my truck to get the new clothes out there. I should have had them delivered. I drove to the apartment and parked out front and began hauling clothes inside to hang in my closet. Once they were all hung up, I got the shirts unwrapped and unpinned so they could be washed before I wore them. The socks would probably be all right without washing, so I didn't worry about them. I discovered that the store had put some cans of shoe polish and 2 brushes in what they had given me. One was a stiff brush and one was a soft brush for polishing the shoe. The thought was, might as well get the job done now, so I would be ready for Monday. I popped a beer while sitting in the living room area with the TV on, shining my shoes. When I finished with the new stuff, I polished my military Oxfords. Now my clothes were near ready. I looked out back to note there was no bike down by apartment 25, and I noticed that the door was open. I walked down to see if Shirley was busy. She was at her ironing board. Hey Shirley, I have a bunch of new clothes, and when you do a load, my new shirts need laundering. Let me give some extra now, so you'll have it for later. She turned to me, and I instantly saw she had a big shiner. I'll come get them later, okay? I want to get this stuff out of here real quick in case a-hole comes back and is still in a bad mood. Is there something I can do, Cheryl? It's my problem. That guy that I take care of sometimes came by and made a fool of me and pissed my man off. He chased the guy off and decided I needed some discipline. I guess I did to let something like that happen. Anyway, Bart took off, but he didn't take his clothes. So he'll be back. He's probably out at his clubhouse drinking. He'll be back. Do you want some ice for that eye? It doesn't look very good. I didn't duck fast enough. At least we got the black eye over with early in his visit. He gives me one whenever he comes home, but usually waits till he's ready to leave. It'll be fine in a couple of days. I guess he might leave early since he's pissed. I told him that if he stayed home, or at least sent me a little money, I wouldn't need to supplement my washing money. As it is, he found my stash and took it all. Now I'm going to be short when the rent's due. I'll help. I got a new job down at the bureau. That's how I got the clothes. They gave me a clothing allowance, and my boss and her husband just helped me pick out a bunch of new clothes. We were at a place called the Mart. I know the place. That's where all the players buy their clothes. The rough trade around town shop there. Most white guys won't go in there as it's kind of rough. Answering Shirley, I didn't have any problems, and they did treat me nice. Anyway, Shirley, when you have a chance, I have some shirts to launder. When do you want to eat supper? I have our roast in the oven here, so I can watch it while I work. It'll be ready around 5. Sounds good. I'm going to the store for some more beer. Can I get you anything? I'm fine, thanks. If you want, you could get some Coke. That would be nice. Done deal, Shirley. I'll have some cold Coke in a few minutes. I did the liquor store run and bought a case of beer and a 12-pack of Coke. That should last a while. It was right at 3, so I told Shirley that I was going out to get a phone, but would be back by 5 for supper. After locking up the apartment, I drove to where I had seen a good-sized shopping mall. I found a kiosk that was a rep for several cell companies. I told them that I needed a phone for work and the minutes would cost me an arm and a leg. If I signed up for 2 years, they would give me a phone for free, so I signed up for a medium amount of minutes, took the phone, and went to a Best Buy store that was next to the mall. I didn't want to spend the money for a new PC, so I left but picked up a newspaper on the way home. I pored over the want ads. They had what was called free Super Saver ads that advertised things that were all $500 or less. I called a couple of the PC ads and found one nearby that sounded good for $150. I drove over to look at the PC and was given a decent demonstration of how well it worked. The best part of the deal was that it did include a printer that was also a scanner, copier, and fax. The guy even gave me a ream of paper for the $150. Now I would have to get the cable company out, but the PC did have a wireless network card. Back home, I set the PC up on the counter and booted it up. The apartment manager was right. Someone had a good wireless router somewhere nearby that was giving me access. No security setting, nothing. I had instant internet. I checked my email and found I had some notes from my guys that were back overseas again. Damn, I wish I were with them. I looked at the employment office website to find that they didn't even advertise that they helped returning servicemen find work. I was going to have to round up a bunch of jobs for men and women coming back and getting out. I would also need some part-time jobs for those that needed a little extra money to augment what some guys stationed away from their family sent home to mom and the kids. By the time I had written a long note to one of my old team now in Afghanistan, Shirley was coming in the door, carrying a big covered baking pan. Dear listeners, the next part will be out soon. Meanwhile, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.